My mom sold the house I inherited behind my back. She looked me in the eye over a video call and said, "You do not need that old house, Nia." Then my brother Darius leaned into the frame laughing and mocked, "But I need a vacation." They used the money from my grandmother's legacy to fund a five-star trip to Dubai, while I stood in the driveway watching strangers throw my childhood memories into a dumpster. They thought I would just cry and accept it like I always did. They thought wrong. 2 weeks later, my lawyer sent exactly one letter to their hotel suite. It read, "You have 72 hours to return the funds or face federal prison." What happened next was not just justice, it was a masterclass in pain. My name is Nia, and at 32 years old, I thought I had seen the worst of my family's greed. I was wrong. If you have ever been the one person in your family who works hard while everyone else expects a handout, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you want to see exactly how I made them pay for every single cent they stole. I pulled my SUV up to the curb of the Victorian home in the West End of Atlanta, and my heart stopped. A massive red and white sold sign was hammered into the front lawn right through the hydrangeas my grandmother Hattie had planted 40 years ago. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned lighter than my caramel skin. This had to be a mistake, a sick joke. I had the deed. I was the sole owner. I scrambled out of the car, leaving the door open and the engine running. That was when I saw them. 3 men in grimy coveralls were hauling furniture out of the front door, not moving it carefully but tossing it. I watched in horror as a heavy wooden object flew through the air and crashed onto a pile of debris in the driveway. It was Grandma Hattie's rocking chair. The hand-carved oak chair where she used to braid my hair and tell me stories about our ancestors. One of the rockers snapped off with a sickening crack. "Hey, stop! What are you doing?" I screamed, running up the walkway in my heels. I grabbed the arm of the nearest mover, a burly man who smelled like stale tobacco and sweat. "Put that down. That is my property. You are trespassing." The man shook me off like I was a fly. "Look, lady, get out of the way. We have a schedule. The new owners want this place gutted by noon." Gutted. The word echoed in my ears. I pushed past him, trying to block the doorway. I said, "Stop! I am calling the police. You cannot touch these things." Another mover laughed, hoisting a box that I knew contained my grandmother's vintage vinyl collection. "Look, lady, the papers are signed. The cash is paid. Take it up with the boss." He pointed toward a sleek black sedan parked across the street. I was trembling not with fear, but with a rage so hot it felt like lava in my veins. I grabbed the box from his hands and shoved him back. "Do not touch another thing." The man in the shiny suit did not flinch when I shoved the mover. He just tapped his Bluetooth earpiece and spoke calmly into the air. "Officer, she is becoming violent." Yes, right now. I heard sirens wailing in the distance before I could even catch my breath. 2 Atlanta Police Department cruisers screeched to a halt at the curb, their blue lights flashing against the peeling white paint of my grandmother's porch. This was a setup. They knew I would come. An officer stepped out, his hand resting near his holster. He looked tired and annoyed. "Ma'am, step away from the workers." The agent smoothed his cheap lapels and pointed a manicured finger at me. "Officer, this woman is trespassing on private property and assaulting my contractors. I want her removed immediately. She is disrupting a lawful eviction." I screamed back, my voice cracking with rage. "It is my property. I am Nia Williams. This house was left to me in a trust. This man is a thief, and these men are destroying my belongings." The officer looked between us, his expression unreadable. He held out his hand. "Do you have proof of ownership, ma'am?" I reached for my phone to pull up the digital deed I had saved, but the agent was faster. He produced a crisp, manila envelope with a theatrical flourish. "Here is the closing statement signed yesterday. Here is the deed transfer recorded with the county clerk this morning. And here is the power of attorney signed by Ms. Nia Williams herself, authorizing her mother Beatrice Williams to execute the sale." The officer took the papers. He scanned them under the harsh sunlight. He looked at me. Is this your signature, ma'am? He held the document up. I looked at the paper and my blood ran cold. There it was. Nia Williams. It was looped and slanted exactly like my mother wrote my name on birthday cards when I was a child. She had not just forged it, she had practiced. And right below it was her signature, bold and arrogant. Beatrice Williams, trustee. It is a forgery, I spat out. I never signed that. My mother stole my identity. That document is fake. The agent smirked a greasy smile that made me want to scream. That sounds like a civil matter, sweetie. Right now the paperwork says We Buy Houses Fast LLC owns this lot. And you are trespassing. The officer handed the papers back to the agent. He turned to me and his stance hardened. Ma'am, you are going to have to leave. If you have a dispute about the signature, you need to take it up in civil court. But right now the deed holder wants you off the premises. And if you touch these men again, you are going downtown for assault. I looked at the officer, then at the agent, who was already checking his watch like this was just another Tuesday. I looked at the house. My grandmother's sanctuary was now a crime scene. I realized in that second that screaming would get me nothing but a mugshot. My mother had set a trap. If I fought physically, I went to jail and she won. If I left, I lost the house temporarily. Fine, I said, my voice ice cold. I am leaving. But you tell your client he just bought a lawsuit, not a house. I walked back to my car, my heels clicking on the pavement. I got in and slammed the door, my hands shaking so hard I could barely put the key in the ignition. I watched in the rearview mirror as the agent laughed with the movers and pointed at the dumpster. They were throwing away my life. But they did not know I was about to throw away theirs. I needed to make a call. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times. I gripped the steering wheel, staring at the sold sign that felt like a stake through my heart. Finally, the line connected. The sound that filled the car speakers was not an apology, it was a symphony of chaos. I heard the distinct chime of airport announcements, the clinking of silverware, and the low hum of hundreds of people moving with purpose. Hello, Nia. Her voice was too loud, cutting through the background noise. It was bright and airy, completely at odds with the devastation she had just caused. Mom. My voice was a low growl, a sound I did not even recognize as my own. Where are you? Oh, we are just at Hartsfield-Jackson. We are in the Delta Sky Club. It is positively packed today, but we managed to find a nice corner by the window. You are at the airport. I repeated the words, feeling the bile rise in my throat. I am at Grandma's house, or what is left of it. There are men here throwing her furniture into a dumpster. A man in a cheap suit just told me the house was sold yesterday. Tell me he is lying. Tell me this is a mistake. Beatrice sighed, the long-suffering exhale of a parent dealing with a toddler. Do not be dramatic, Nia. It is done. I signed the papers yesterday morning. It was a cash deal, very clean, very fast. We did not even have to stage it or do an open house. You sold the house! I screamed, the sound tearing at my throat. You forged my signature and sold a house that belongs to me. That house was in a trust. You had no right. I had every right. I am your mother, and I am the trustee. I made an executive decision. You do not need that old drafty Victorian in the West End. It is too much maintenance for a single woman. Besides, the neighborhood is changing and not for the better. I got $400,000 cash, Nia. Do you know what that kind of liquidity means for this family? 400,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. That house was appraised at $850,000 6 months ago. You sold it for pennies on the dollar to some predatory flipper. You basically gave it away. It was quick money, Nia. Beatrice snapped, her tone hardening. And we needed it now, not 6 months from now after paying commissions and closing costs. Darius needed this. Darius? Of course. It always came back to Darius. Your brother has had a hard year. She continued, her voice softening into that sickening doting tone she only used for him. The crypto market crashed. His investments went down. He was depressed, Nia. He needed a win. He needed seed capital to rebuild his portfolio. This is an investment in his future. He is the man of the family. He needs to build a legacy. A legacy. I laughed a dry, humorless sound. You destroyed Grandma's legacy to fund his gambling addiction. You stole from your daughter to give to your son. Again. Stop being jealous. It is ugly on you. We are taking a trip, a mental health break. We are going to Dubai. Darius says the business opportunities there are incredible. We are going to turn this 400,000 into millions. You should be thanking me. I relieved you of a burden and gave your brother a chance to fly. You are not flying anywhere, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. You are stealing. This is fraud, Mom. Oh, please. We will be back in 2 weeks. Stop acting like the world is ending. The money is in the account. It is family money. And last time I checked, you are family. So be happy for us. Now I have to go. They are calling our group. Be happy for you. I stared at the phone as the line went dead. She had hung up on me. She had confessed to a felony and then hung up to go board a first-class flight. I looked out the windshield at the house that was supposed to be my sanctuary. She thought this was over. She thought I would just sit here and take it. She had no idea that she had just booked a one-way ticket to ruin. I stared at the black screen for exactly 3 seconds before my thumb hit the redial button. I was not done. Not even close. The line connected, and this time the video feed flickered to life. There he was, Darius, my 28-year-old brother, the golden child who had never paid a bill on time in his life. He was wearing a pair of oversized Gucci sunglasses indoors. The price tag on those frames alone could have fixed the leaking roof he had ignored for years. He held the phone up high, angling it so I could see the gold-plated entrance to the Emirates first-class lounge behind him. Yo, Nia, why are you harassing Mom? He boomed, his voice grating against my eardrums. We are trying to get into the Zen zone before the flight. You are killing the vibe. The vibe. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. Darius, you realize you just committed a felony, right? You cannot sell property that does not belong to you to fund a vacation. He laughed, a sound that lacked any genuine humor. It was the laugh of someone who had never faced a consequence. You are such a hater, Nia. You always were a gatekeeper, keeping that big house all to yourself while your family struggles. That is selfish. Grandma Hattie left that house to the family. That means me, too. And right now, I am the one in crisis. Crisis! I spat the word out. You call losing money on meme coins a crisis? He adjusted his sunglasses, looking down his nose at the camera. It was a market correction, okay. I lost exposure. I took a hit. My mental health is fragile right now. I need this trip to heal. I need to reset my chakras in Dubai. The desert air is curative, Nia. You would not understand because you are trapped in that worker bee mentality. You think small, I think global. I watched him on the screen, marveling at the absolute delusion. He truly believed he was a victim. He truly believed he deserved a $400,000 bailout because he gambled away his rent money on a digital scam. He was wearing a tracksuit that looked like it cost more than my monthly mortgage payment on my condo. And look at this. He panned the camera around, showing off the buffet of gourmet food and the waiters circulating with silver trays. We are flying the A380, baby. I got the private suite. There is a shower on the plane, a literal shower in the sky. When was the last time you took a shower at 30,000 feet, Nia? Never. Because you are too busy counting pennies and hoarding dusty old furniture. We are about to sip Dom Perignon and eat caviar while you sit in Atlanta traffic. He brought the camera back to his face, a smirk plastering his features. So do me a favor. Stop calling. Stop crying over that rotted wood shack. It was an eyesore anyway. We did you a favor liquidating that asset. Now you do not have to worry about property taxes or mowing the lawn. You are free, just like me. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You should be thanking us, sis. Mom made a boss move. We are going to turn this seed money into an empire. When we get back, I will buy you a new rocking chair. A better one. One that does not smell like old people and poverty. Free. The word hung there. He thought he was free. He thought he was flying high. He did not know that gravity was about to pull him down harder than he could ever imagine. Enjoy the shower, Darius, I said, my voice flat. Make sure you get really clean, because where you are going, the water is not quite so warm. He rolled his eyes behind the dark lenses. Whatever, hater. Watch my stories. It is going to be a movie. He ended the call. The screen went black again. I sat in my car, the silence of the street pressing in on me. He needed to heal. He needed a reset. I looked at the dashboard clock. They would be boarding soon. They would be in the air for 14 hours. That gave me exactly enough time to make sure that when they landed, their reality would be shattered into a million pieces. The screen had barely gone black when it lit up again. Incoming video call. Darius. I stared at it. Why were they calling back? To twist the knife, to make sure the wound was fatal. I swiped answer. But it was not Darius. It was Ashley. Her blonde hair was perfectly blown out, and she was sipping something pink from a flute. She held the phone at that high angle designed to make her look thin and innocent. Behind her, the gold accents of the first-class lounge glittered like a taunt. "Hey, Nia," she chirped. Her voice was like syrup laced with arsenic. "I just wanted to say sorry about Darius being so intense. You know how passionate he gets about his business. But honestly, girl, we need to have a real talk. Woman to woman." I did not say a word. I just watched her preen in the camera lens, fixing her lip gloss. "You really need to stop acting like a victim here." She continued, her eyes wide with faux sincerity. "I mean, have you looked at that neighborhood lately? The West End. It is terrifying. When we drove down there to meet the notary, I made Darius lock the doors. I saw people walking around, just walking, Nia. It is so ghetto. I was afraid they were going to strip the tires off my Range Rover while we were inside signing the papers." She took a sip of her drink and wrinkled her nose. "Honestly, we did you a huge favor. You were sitting on a liability. That house was old. It smelled like mothballs and sadness. And all that junk inside, that rocking chair, those dusty records, it was just clutter. We helped you declutter your life. You should be thanking us for handling the heavy lifting. We turned a pile of rotting wood into actual usable cash." I felt a vein throb in my temple. My grandmother's house was a historic landmark. Those people walking around were neighbors who had lived there for 50 years. But to Ashley, they were just threats. To Ashley, my heritage was just a safety hazard. "And look at the bright side," she beamed, gesturing to the luxury around her. "Because of that old shack, look where we are. You basically gifted us this honeymoon." Darius and I never got a proper trip after the wedding because funds were tight. But now, we are going to live it up. We are going to the Burj Khalifa, Nia. We are going to swim with dolphins. And every time we order a cocktail, we will make a little toast to you. To Nia and her generous donation to the Ashley and Darius Happiness Fund. She giggled, a sound that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. "So please stop calling the police. Stop calling lawyers. Stop trying to ruin this for us. It makes you look so bitter. And bitterness gives you wrinkles. You are already 32. You do not want to look old and alone, do you? Just let it go. Let us enjoy this. We earned it. You earned nothing," I said, my voice dead calm. "You forged a signature. You stole a deed. And you are about to fly into a nightmare." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, you are such a buzzkill. Whatever. They are calling our flight. First class is boarding. Bye, Nia. Thanks for the cash. Try not to be too lonely in your little apartment." The screen went black for the second time. This time it stayed black. She had called my grandmother's legacy trash. She had called my neighborhood a ghetto. And she had thanked me for funding her lifestyle with stolen money. I sat in the silence of my car. The anger was gone. It had been replaced by something much more useful. Clarity. They were not just greedy. They were delusional. And delusions were easy to break. I looked at the clock. They were boarding. The trap was set. Now all I had to do was wait for them to fly high enough that the fall would be spectacular. I stared at the black screen for a heartbeat before dialing one last time. They declined the call. I texted them. If you board that plane, you are fleeing the jurisdiction of a federal crime. Turn around. The response came seconds later. A group selfie. Darius, Ashley, and my mother all holding champagne flutes in the jet bridge tunnel. The caption read, "Wheels up, hater. See you in 2 weeks." Then a second notification. You have been removed from the family group chat. Silence descended on the yard. The movers had finished loading the first truck and were taking a smoke break by the curb, casually flicking ash onto the driveway my grandfather had paved with his own hands 50 years ago. The police officer had driven away, leaving me with the warning to vacate. I stood there frozen. The humidity of the Atlanta afternoon pressed against my skin, but I felt ice cold. They were gone. They had actually done it. They had stolen my inheritance, forged my name, and flown halfway across the world to spend it on designer bags and luxury suites. And they laughed while doing it. My eyes drifted to the pile of debris near the porch. The movers had tossed the smaller items there to be hauled away later. On top of the heap sat the broken rocking chair. One of the legs was snapped clean off, splinters of dark oak jutting out like broken bones. That chair had survived 3 generations. It had rocked me to sleep when I was a baby. It had rocked my mother when she was a baby. Grandma Hattie used to sit in it on summer evenings, humming gospel tunes and shelling peas. She would tell me, "Nia, this house is your shield. The world is hard for us, but this roof is yours. Never let anyone take it." I walked over to the pile. I reached out and touched the smooth wood of the armrest worn down by decades of Hattie's hands. It felt like touching a corpse. A sob rose in my throat, hot and choking, but I swallowed it down. I pushed it deep into the pit of my stomach until it turned into something else. Something heavy, something solid. Sadness is a soft emotion. It makes you weak. It makes you want to curl up and hide. But what I felt now was not sadness. It was clarity. Absolute crystalline clarity. My mother did not love me. My brother did not respect me. To them, I was not a person. I was an obstacle to their desires and a resource to be harvested. They had stripped the meat from my bones and tossed the carcass aside so they could go feast in Dubai. I picked up the broken leg of the chair. It was heavy in my hand. I looked at the sold sign again. I looked at the movers who were laughing at a joke I could not hear. "You want a war, mother?" I whispered to the empty air. "You want to see who really runs this family? You think because I serve food I am a servant. You forgot who taught me how to cook. You forgot that Hattie taught me how to use a knife." I dropped the piece of wood. It clattered against the pavement, with a sound like a gavel striking a bench. I turned my back on the house. I walked to my car. My stride was long and purposeful. The tears were gone. My hands were steady. I checked the time. Their flight was taking off. They were trapped in a metal tube for 14 hours. That gave me a head start. I opened my contacts and scrolled past family members I would never speak to again. I found the name I needed. Sterling Vance. The most shark-like attorney in the city. The man who ate fraud cases for breakfast. I pressed call. It rang once. "Sterling," I said, my voice devoid of any tremor. "Do not let them land peacefully. I want to scorch the earth." I put the car in gear. The grieving daughter was gone. The CEO was back online, and business was about to pick up. The Bluetooth connection in my Range Rover hummed as the call connected. I did not have to wait long. Sterling Vance answered on the second ring. He did not do small talk. He did not ask about the weather. He simply said, "Nia, I was just looking at the contracts for the Tyler Perry Studios deal. Are we ready to sign?" I gripped the leather steering wheel. my eyes fixed on the road ahead, blurring slightly from the heat rising off the asphalt. Forget the studio contract, Sterling. We have a bigger problem. My mother just sold the West End estate, without my permission, and she forged my signature to do it. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. I could hear the faint click of a pen tapping against a mahogany desk. When Sterling finally spoke, his voice had dropped an octave, shifting from business casual to predator mode. "Walk me through it, Nia." Slowly. I told him everything. The sold sign, the movers destroying the antiques, the phone call, the confession, the flight to Dubai. When I finished, I heard the distinct sound of typing on a keyboard. Fast, aggressive typing. "Nia, listen to me." Sterling said, his voice crisp and clear. "This is not just a family dispute. This is first-degree forgery. This is real estate fraud. And if they move that money across state lines or international borders, which they are doing right now by flying to Dubai, it is wire fraud. That is federal. We are talking about 20 years in prison, not probation." "Prison." "I know," I said. "I want them to pay Sterling. I want them to pay for every splinter of wood they broke. I can have the airport police intercept them at the gate," Sterling offered. "We can have them in cuffs before they even get their passports stamped in Dubai. We can stop the wire transfer. We can freeze the assets right now. Just say the word." I stared at the Atlanta skyline rising in the distance. I thought about Darius in his first-class suite drinking champagne paid for by my grandmother's legacy. I thought about Ashley mocking my neighborhood. I thought about my mother choosing a vacation over her daughter. "If we stop them now, they are victims," I said, my voice steady. "They will cry to the judge that it was a misunderstanding. They will say they intended to pay me back. They will play the ignorant family card." Sterling paused. "So what is the play?" "Let them go," I said. "Let them land in Dubai. Let them check into the hotel. Let them swipe those cards. Let them spend $10, $20, $50,000. I want a paper trail so long they can never deny it. I want them to feel rich, Sterling. I want them to taste the luxury. And then when they are bloated and happy and think they got away with it, I want you to cut them off." I could hear the smile in Sterling's voice. "You want to strand them in the desert. I want them to know what it feels like to be abandoned with nothing." I replied, coldness settling in my chest. "Give them a few days. Let them dig their own grave with designer shovels. Then we send the letter. 72 hours, or federal prison." "You are a dangerous woman, Nia Williams," Sterling said with genuine admiration. "I will draft the paperwork. We will monitor the accounts. Enjoy your evening, chef. We will start the hunt in the morning." I hung up the phone. The tears were gone. The grief was packed away in a box deep inside me. I was not a victim anymore. I was the CEO of my own life. And my mother had just made a hostile takeover attempt against the wrong company. I pressed the accelerator and drove toward the city. It was time to get back to the kitchen. I had a $2 million contract to celebrate, and my family had a very expensive lesson to learn. I walked into Sterling Vance's office the next morning at 8 sharp. The air conditioning was set to a brisk 68 degrees, and the smell of expensive leather and old money hung in the air. Sterling was already behind his massive mahogany desk, a thick file spread open before him. The label on the folder read, "Hattie Williams, Irrevocable Trust." "Sit down," Nia Sterling said without looking up. "I have been reading your grandmother's trust documents for the last hour. She was a very smart woman. She knew exactly who her daughter was." I sat in the plush guest chair, my spine stiff. Grandma Hattie always told me she wanted to protect me. I just never realized how much she anticipated this exact moment. Sterling tapped a paragraph on the yellowed legal paper. "Look here. This is an irrevocable trust. Do you know what that means in plain English? It means once she signed this, the assets inside it were locked. They could not be altered, amended, or revoked by anyone. Not even her. And certainly not by your mother." He flipped the page. Beatrice Williams is listed here as the trustee. That gave her the power to manage the property, to pay the taxes, to ensure the roof did not leak. But it did not give her ownership. She was a caretaker, Nia. Nothing more. You are listed right here. He pointed to a line at the bottom. Sole beneficiary, Nia Williams. That means the house was never hers to sell. I said, the reality sinking in. She acted like she owned it. She told the real estate agent she was the owner. She lied, Sterling said flatly. As a trustee, she has a fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. Selling a prime asset for 50% of its market value to fund a personal vacation is the exact opposite of that duty. It is a breach of trust. But here is the kicker. He pulled out another document, the deed transfer from the county recorder. To sell a property held in an irrevocable trust, the beneficiary must sign a consent form acknowledging the sale and agreeing to the terms. Without your signature, the title company would never have cleared the transaction. But they did clear it, I said, my stomach tightening. Because she forged my signature. Exactly, Sterling said. But she did not just forge a permission slip, she forged a power of attorney. She created a fake legal document giving herself the authority to sign as you. That is how she bypassed the title company checks. She presented herself as you, legally speaking. So the sale is void, I asked. Completely, Sterling answered. It is void ab initio. From the beginning, it is as if it never happened. The moment we file this evidence with the court, the deed reverts back to the trust. That real estate company, We Buy Houses, Fast, just bought a worthless piece of paper for $400,000. They do not own the house. You do. I leaned back in the chair. So I can kick them out. You can do more than that, Sterling said, a shark-like grin spreading across his face. You can evict them. You can sue them for damages to the property. And you can hold your mother personally liable for every cent of value lost. She pierced the corporate veil of her own scheme. She is exposed, Nia. Completely exposed. But right now, she thinks she won, I said, picturing her in Dubai. She thinks the money is hers. Sterling closed the file with a heavy thud. Let her think that for another 48 hours. Let her spend. Let her upgrade. Because when we drop this hammer, she is going to realize that she did not just sell a house. She sold her freedom. And the lease is up. Now let's look at this forgery. I want to see exactly how sloppy she got. Sterling slid the power of attorney document across the desk. It was a single sheet of paper that had authorized the theft of my heritage. He pulled a magnifying glass from his drawer and hovered it over the signature line. It is almost insulting, Sterling muttered. Usually when someone commits a six-figure felony, they try a little harder. Look at the end, Nia. You sign with a sharp vertical stroke. This is a loopy cursive scrawl. It looks like it was written by someone who learned penmanship in 1965. I leaned in. He was right. It was not just a forgery, it was a caricature of my name. It was the way my mother wished I signed my name, Feminine Decorative Week. She did not even try to match my driver's license, I said, disgust curling in my stomach. She just signed it how she thought it should look. And look at the date, Sterling pointed out. This was allegedly signed 3 days ago. Where were you 3 days ago? I was in a meeting with the studio heads for 10 hours. I have security logs, witness testimony, and GPS data to prove I was nowhere near a notary office. Exactly, Sterling said, leaning back. But a forgery is useless without a witness. A notary has to verify the identity of the signer. They have to check ID. They have to swear under oath that you were standing right there. He tapped the bottom of the page where a raised seal sat next to a signature. Linda Johnson. Does that name ring a bell? I froze. Linda. I looked closer at the stamp. Commission expires 2026, Fulton County. That is Miss Linda. She plays bridge with my mother every Tuesday night at the senior center. She has known me since I was 5 years old. Sterling's eyes lit up with predatory glee. So, we have a family friend who used her state-issued commission to facilitate a fraudulent real estate transfer. That changes this from a solo act to a conspiracy. Miss Linda just traded her notary license and her freedom for what? A guarantee she would win the next bridge tournament. She probably thought she was helping, I said, my voice dripping with bitterness. My mother probably spun her a sob story. Poor Darius needs help. Nia is too busy working to sign the papers. Just stamp it for me, Linda. It is for the family. And Linda, bless her heart, stamped away my property rights. Intent does not matter when you break the law. This flagrantly, Sterling said, making a note on his legal pad. We are adding Linda Johnson to the lawsuit. We will file a formal complaint with the Secretary of State's office by noon. By dinner time, she will be receiving a call informing her that her commission is suspended pending a criminal investigation. I hope she enjoys playing solitaire because her bridge partner is going to be unavailable for a very long time. He closed the folder. This forgery is the key, Nia. It unravels everything. The deed is void because the authority to sign it never existed. The money they took is proceeds from a crime. And everyone who touched this transaction, the mother, the brother, the wife, the notary, and the buyer, is now standing in the blast zone. I stood up, smoothing down my chef's coat. Burn it down, Sterling. Burn it all down. We are just lighting the match, Sterling promised. Now let us go pay a visit to the real estate company. I have a feeling they are going to be very cooperative once they realize they bought a stolen house. I left the sterile chill of the law office and stepped into the Atlanta heat. The humidity clung to me like a second skin, but I did not mind. I had work to do. I drove my Range Rover not to a diner or a food truck, but to the sprawling complex of Tyler Perry Studios. The security guard at the gate did not ask for my ID. He just waved and said, "Good morning, Chef Nia." My mother thought I flipped burgers for a living. She thought my white coat smelled like old grease because I was trapped in a dead-end job. She had never asked to visit my workplace. If she had, she would have seen this. A 20,000-square-foot industrial kitchen, humming with the energy of 50 employees, all moving in synchronized chaos. I walked through the loading dock doors and the noise hit me. The clatter of pans, the hiss of steam, the shouting of orders. It was music. My music. Chef on deck. Someone yelled. The entire kitchen paused. 50 heads turned. "Good morning, Chef," they chorused in unison before returning to their tasks. This was Legacy Catering. My company. The one I built from scratch with nothing but my grandmother's recipes and a maxed-out credit card. We did not serve wedding buffets or birthday parties. We fed Hollywood, Marvel, Netflix, HBO. When a blockbuster was shooting in Atlanta, they called me. Marcus, my sous chef, met me at the pass. He was holding a clipboard looking stressed. The vegan options for the lead actress are prepped. The craft services truck is loaded for the second unit. But we have a problem with the lobster delivery for the wrap party tonight. I took the clipboard. I will call the supplier. If they do not have Maine lobster by 3 p.m., tell them I am canceling the contract and going to their competitor. And Marcus, make sure the brisket for the crew lunch is resting. I do not want dry meat on my watch. Yes, chef. He scurried away. I walked through my kitchen, checking stations, tasting sauces, correcting knife cuts. This was my domain. Here I was not the disappointing daughter. I was the boss. I was the woman who signed the checks. I was the one who decided who ate and who starved. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Darius, a picture of him holding a stack of cash. Caption: winning. I looked around at my empire. The stainless steel appliances worth more than his car. The staff whose livelihoods depended on my decisions. The contracts that generated millions in revenue. Darius thought he was winning because he stole a few $100,000. He was playing checkers. I was playing 4D chess. I put the phone away. I did not have time for his petty flexing. I had a business to run, and today was a big day, the biggest. The studio heads were coming for a final tasting. If they liked what they ate, I would be signing the largest contract in the history of Legacy Catering. I tied my apron tighter. My mother thought I was a servant. She was about to find out that I owned the whole damn castle. The private tasting room was silent, except for the soft clink of silverware against fine china. 3 executives from Centurion Studios sat at the long oak table. In the center sat the CEO, David Ross, a man known for making or breaking careers with a single phone call. He took a bite of the 24-hour braised short ribs served over a bed of smoked Gouda grits. He chewed slowly, his expression unreadable. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my face remained a mask of professional calm. This was the moment. This was the difference between being a cook and being a mogul. Ross put down his fork. He wiped his mouth with a linen napkin. Then he looked at me. "Nia," he said, his voice grave. "This is not food. This is a religious experience." The tension in the room broke instantly. The other executives nodded enthusiastically, diving back into their plates. "We have been looking for a partner to handle the craft services for our entire Phase 4 production slate," Ross continued. "We need reliability. We need quality. And frankly, we need someone who can handle the egos of A-list stars without blinking. After this meal, I am convinced you are the only person for the job." He signaled to his assistant, who pulled a thick document from a leather briefcase. The contract. It slid across the polished wood table, stopping right in front of me. I opened it to the payment schedule on the last page. The figure was bolded in black ink. $2.5 million. A 2-year exclusive retainer. I picked up my pen. It was a Mont Blanc, heavier and far more valuable than the cheap ballpoints my mother used to sign her fraudulent deeds. I signed my name, Nia Williams. The ink flowed smoothly, sealing the deal that would elevate Legacy Catering from a local success to a national powerhouse. "Thank you, Mr. Ross," I said, shaking his hand with a firm grip. "My team will not let you down. We will have the logistics plan to your office by Monday." As they left, I stood alone in the quiet dining room, staring at the signed contract. $2.5 million. My mother thought I was a servant. She told her church friends I worked in a cafeteria ladling soup. She pitied me. She thought I was struggling to pay rent while she played the role of the benevolent matriarch. I laughed, a low sound that echoed off the walls. My net worth just surpassed the combined value of every asset my family owned. I could buy my mother's house 10 times over. I could buy Darius's fake crypto portfolio and Ashley's leased Range Rover and still have enough left over to fund a scholarship in Grandma Hattie's name. They judged me by my apron. They did not see the balance sheet. They valued flash. They valued logos and leases and things they could post on Instagram. I valued cash flow. I valued equity. I valued ownership. They were playing dress-up with stolen money while I was building a dynasty with my own 2 hands. My phone buzzed in my chef coat pocket. Another alert from the joint account. They had just checked into the Atlantis in Dubai. A $15,000 hold on the card. They were living it up on $400,000 of stolen money, thinking they were royalty. They had no idea they were spending pennies compared to what I just made before lunch. I picked up the contract and walked back to the main kitchen. Marcus was waiting, his eyes wide with anticipation. "We got it," I said, holding up the paper. The kitchen erupted in cheers, pots banging against stoves in celebration. I let myself smile for a moment, basking in the genuine respect of my team. But then the coldness returned. I had secured my future. Now it was time to dismantle theirs. I needed to go see the people who bought my house. The trap was set, and the mice had just taken the cheese. It was time to close the door. Sterling's Mercedes S-Class pulled up to the curb of a nondescript strip mall in Decatur. The sign above the door was peeling slightly, reading, "We buy houses fast cash in 24 hours." It was exactly the kind of predatory operation that thrived on desperation and ignorance. I sat in the passenger seat, my stomach tight. This was the place where my mother had signed away my history. "Let me do the talking," Sterling said, adjusting his cufflinks. "These guys operate in the gray area. They are used to bullying homeowners. They are not used to dealing with federal litigation." We walked in. The office smelled of stale coffee and desperation. A man in a polo shirt sat behind a cheap desk talking loudly into a headset. When he saw Sterling, he paused. Sterling did not wait. He placed his briefcase on the desk and opened it. Mr. Henderson Sterling said, his voice smooth but dangerous. I am Sterling Vance. I represent Ms. Nia Williams, the legal owner of the property at 452 Oak Street. The property you illegally purchased yesterday. Henderson laughed a nervous chuckle. Illegally purchased. Now hold on a minute, counselor. We have a signed deed. We paid cash. Everything was above board. The seller had power of attorney. We checked. You checked nothing. Sterling interrupted. You accepted a power of attorney document that a first-year law student could identify as a forgery. You failed to verify the identity of the beneficiary. And you purchased a property held in an irrevocable trust without the beneficiary's consent. That is not negligence, Mr. Henderson. That is conspiracy to commit fraud. Henderson stood up, his face flushing. Conspiracy. Now wait just a damn minute. Sterling pulled out a draft complaint. It was thick, heavy with the weight of the law. This is a lawsuit I am prepared to file in federal court this afternoon. It names your company, you personally, and your notary as defendants in a RICO case. Racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. We are alleging that your business model is predicated on stripping assets from vulnerable families through fraudulent means. RICO. Henderson's eyes bulged. That is for mobsters. And for organized real estate fraud, Sterling said coldly. The penalties include treble damages. That means 3 times the value of the house plus legal fees plus prison time. Or we can do this the easy way. Henderson slumped back into his chair. He looked at me, then back at Sterling. He was sweating. What is the easy way? You rescind the sale immediately, Sterling said. You file a quitclaim deed returning the property to the Hattie Williams Trust. You provide us with the full, unedited security footage of the signing. We want to see Beatrice Williams signing that forgery. We want to hear what she said. And you give us copies of every email, text, and document exchanged. Do that, and we leave your name off the criminal complaint. We will just sue you for civil damages, which your insurance will cover. Henderson did not hesitate. He scrambled to his computer. I can do that. I have the video. It is on the cloud. She came in here bragging about it. Said her daughter was too busy cooking to care. Said she needed the money for a business investment in Dubai. He pulled up a video file. I watched on the screen as my mother sat in that very chair laughing. Ashley was next to her checking her nails. Darius was pacing behind them. Just sign it, Mom, Darius said on the video. Nia will never know. She is too busy scrubbing pots. My mother laughed. You are right, baby. She does not need a house. She needs a reality check. This money is going to change our lives. I looked away, my hands clenching into fists. They laughed about it. They planned it like a family outing. Henderson handed Sterling a flash drive. Here, take it. Just leave me out of it. I will sign the quitclaim now. I do not want any trouble with the feds. Sterling took the drive. Wise choice, Mr. Henderson. You just saved your business. We walked out into the sunlight. I held the flash drive in my hand. It was small light, but it contained the nail in their coffin. We have them, Sterling said. We have the video confession. We have the forgery. Now we just need to make sure there is no money left for them to fight back with. I nodded. Freeze the trust account, Sterling, but leave the offshore one open for now. I want them to think they still have a lifeline. Until they do not. Sterling smiled. You are learning fast, Nia. Very fast. Let us go to the bank. The glass doors of the First National Bank of Atlanta slid open, and Sterling Vance walked in like he owned the vault. I followed close behind him, my heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. This was the bank where Grandma Hattie had kept her money for 40 years. The bank where she taught me how to balance a checkbook. Now it was the crime scene. We bypassed the tellers and went straight to the glass-walled office at the back. The branch manager, Mr. Thorne, looked up from his computer. He was a man who prided himself on discretion, But when he saw Sterling, his face went pale. He stood up immediately, smoothing his tie. Mr. Vance, Miss Williams, to what do I owe this pleasure? Sterling did not sit. He placed a certified copy of the trust agreement and the forged power of attorney on the desk. We are here to freeze the Hattie Williams irrevocable trust account immediately. We have evidence of fraudulent access and unauthorized liquidation of assets. Thorne looked at the documents. His hands trembled slightly as he typed into his terminal. I see. Let me pull up the records. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he swallowed hard. I am afraid there is a problem, Mr. Vance. The account balance is 0. 0. I said the word dropping like a stone. Thorne turned the monitor so we could see. It was emptied this morning. At 9 a.m. Beatrice Williams came in. She presented the sale documents from the house closing. Since she was listed as the trustee and had the funds wired directly in, she had access. Where did it go? Sterling demanded, his voice cutting like a knife. Thorne pointed to 2 line items. She made a cash withdrawal of $100,000. We had to override the daily limit, but she claimed it was for emergency medical expenses for her son. She took it in hundreds, $100,000 in a duffel bag. I felt sick. She was walking around with a fortune in cash. And the rest? Sterling asked. The remaining $300,000 was wired internally, Thorne said, to a personal checking account under the names of Beatrice Williams and Darius Williams. Sterling slammed his hand on the desk, making Thorne jump. That is it. That is the nail in the coffin. I looked at Sterling, confused. Why is that good news? She stole it all. Because Nia, Sterling said, turning to me, a grim smile on his face. Taking the money from the sale is fraud. But moving that money from a trust account to a personal account, to hide its origin, or change its ownership status, that is money laundering. That is 18 U.S.C. 1956. It carries a sentence of up to 20 years. He turned back to Thorne. Freeze the personal account. Right now. Thorne typed furiously. I am trying, but I see pending outgoing wires. They are moving the money again. International transfers. Let them go pending, Sterling ordered. Do not stop the international wires yet. Just freeze the domestic access. I want the paper trail to cross the border. Once that money hits a foreign bank, it becomes a federal case involving the FBI and Interpol. Thorne nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. Done. The personal account is locked for domestic use. The wires to the Cayman Islands and Dubai are pending. Perfect, Sterling said. She just turned a local property dispute into an international criminal conspiracy. She thinks she is being smart moving the money around. But she is just leaving footprints in wet cement. I looked at the screen one last time. 0 balance. My grandmother's legacy wiped out in minutes by a woman who claimed to love me. She took the cash to spend. She moved the rest to hide. She is not just a thief, I said, my voice trembling with rage. She is a criminal. Sterling put a hand on my shoulder. And criminals get caught. We have the proof, Nia. Now we let the trap snap shut. She has cash in her pocket and a frozen account back home. When that cash runs out, she is going to reach for a lifeline that is not there. And we will be watching. My phone vibrated against the polished surface of Mr. Thorne's desk. It was a sharp, aggressive buzz that cut through the silence of the bank office. I glanced down at the screen. A notification from the mobile banking app lit up the display. Transaction alert. Dubai duty free. $15,000. I picked up the phone. Another alert popped up immediately. Transaction alert. Emirates Gold. $8,000. And another. Transaction alert. Gucci Airport Boutique. $6,000. They are shopping. I said, my voice devoid of emotion. They have not even left the airport terminal yet, and they are burning through the cash. Thorne looked at his monitor, his face pale. I see the pending authorizations coming in. They are using the debit card linked to the personal account before the international wire fully clears. They are spending against the pending balance. I can decline these right now, Ms. Williams. I can mark them as fraudulent activity and shut the card down this second. His finger hovered over the enter key. He looked at me, waiting for the order to save what was left of the money. Sterling looked at me too. He did not speak. He was testing me. He wanted to see if I was ready to play the long game. "Do not do it," I said. Thorne blinked. "Excuse me. Let the transactions go through," I said, leaning forward. "Approve every single one of them." "But Ms. Williams," Thorne stammered. "They are draining the account. That is your money. That is the house money. If we stop it now, we save $30,000. And we lose the conviction," I countered. "If you cut them off now, they will claim it was a mistake. They will say they thought the money was theirs legally. They will play the victim. But look at what they are buying, Thorne." I held up the phone. Gold, designer handbags, high-end watches. My mother told me she sold the house because Darius was in a financial crisis. She told the bank she needed cash for a medical emergency. You do not buy Gucci bags for a medical emergency. You do not buy solid gold chains for a financial crisis. Sterling nodded, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. She is right. This goes to intent. It proves mens rea, the guilty mind. They are not using the funds for necessities. They are engaging in a luxury spending spree with stolen assets. It destroys any defense they might try to mount about necessity or misunderstanding. "Let them buy it all," I said. "Let them buy the perfume. Let them buy the silk scarves. Let them buy the alcohol." Every time she swipes that card, she is signing her own confession. Every receipt is a piece of evidence I can hand to a jury. I want a paper trail so long it wraps around their necks and chokes them. Thorne slowly lowered his hand from the keyboard. He looked terrified of me. "Understood. I will authorize the transactions. But I am setting a hard stop when the liquidity runs out." "Good," I said. "Let them feel rich for a few hours. Let them get on that plane feeling like kings and queens. Because when they land, they are going to find out that their carriage has turned back into a pumpkin." Another alert chimed. $4,000 at a steakhouse in the terminal. They were feasting on my pain. Sterling closed his briefcase. "We have done all we can here. The trap is set. The domestic accounts are frozen, the international wires are being tracked by the FBI, and now we have proof of their spending habits. You should go home, Nia. Get some rest. The real show starts in 72 hours. I stood up. I was not tired. I was energized. I felt the cold hum of power in my veins. My mother had taught me to be frugal. She had taught me to save. She never taught me how to destroy someone. I had to learn that on my own. I walked out of the bank into the blinding Atlanta sun. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another purchase. I did not even look. It did not matter anymore. They were just running up the tab on a bill they could never pay, and I was going to be the one to collect. The Emirates A380 touched down on the tarmac at Dubai International Airport, and the heat of the Arabian desert rushed in to greet them. For my mother Beatrice and my brother Darius, this was not just a vacation destination. It was the promised land. They stepped off the jet bridge, wearing their new designer sunglasses indoors, acting like they owned the terminal. They bypassed the regular baggage claim and headed straight for the luxury transport desk. They did not look like fugitives fleeing a federal crime. They looked like lottery winners who could not wait to blow the jackpot. Darius marched straight to the prestige rental kiosk. He slammed his hand on the marble counter with the confidence of a man spending someone else's money. "I want the euros," he demanded, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged hall. "Yellow. Bright yellow. I want them to see me coming from Abu Dhabi." The rental agent hesitated, looking at the debit card Darius slid across the counter. It was the card linked to the personal account, where they had laundered my trust fund money. Back in Atlanta, I watched the notification pop up on my screen. $5,000 a day, plus a $20,000 security deposit. I signaled Sterling to let it clear. The machine beeped. Approved. Darius cheered like he had just won the Super Bowl high. fiving the confused agent. That is what I am talking about. Access, power, money talks and wealth whispers, but today we are screaming. They loaded their Louis Vuitton luggage into the neon yellow SUV. The engine roared to life, a guttural growl that vibrated through the parking garage. Darius peeled out of the lot, revving the engine unnecessarily, causing heads to turn. He wanted the attention. He craved it. In the passenger seat, Ashley pulled out her phone. She clipped a ring light to the top and opened TikTok. She adjusted her filter to make her skin look flawless and hit record. "Hey guys, just touched down in the DXB." She chirped, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. The heat hits different when you are rich. She panned the camera to Darius driving with one hand on the wheel, the Rolex I paid for gleaming on his wrist. "Look at my hubby in his new whip. We are just manifesting abundance today." Then she turned the camera back to herself, her face contorting into a mock sympathetic pout that made my blood boil. She leaned into the lens. "Shout out to everyone stuck in traffic back in Atlanta right now. Shout out to the people working double shifts in hot, greasy kitchens just to pay rent. We see you. We do not want to be you, but we see you." She laughed, a cruel sound that cut deeper than any knife. "Special thanks to my sister-in-law for sponsoring this content. She is probably scrubbing a stove right now while we get ready to scrub sand off our feet at the private beach club. Stay grinding, girl. Maybe one day you can afford a postcard." From the back seat, my mother chimed in, sipping a bottle of water that cost $10. "She chose her life, Ashley. We chose ours. Some people are born to serve, and some are born to be served." Ashley posted the video with the caption, "POV. You are spending your inheritance while your hater sister works overtime." They drove onto Sheikh Zayed Road, the skyline of Dubai rising like a mirage of glass and steel before them. They felt invincible. They felt untouchable. They had no idea that every mile they drove was being tracked by a forensic accountant in Atlanta. They did not know that the video Ashley just posted was being saved by my lawyer as Exhibit A in a defamation lawsuit. And they definitely did not know that the clock on their 72-hour ultimatum had already started ticking. The yellow Lamborghini screeched to a halt under the massive archway of the Atlantis the Royal. A team of valets in pristine white uniforms swarmed the vehicle, opening doors before the engine even cut out. Darius stepped out, tossing the keys to a man who looked like he had been parking supercars since birth. "Keep it close," Darius ordered. "We will need it for dinner." They swept into the lobby, a cathedral of marble and gold, where fire erupted from fountains and jellyfish swam in tanks the size of small apartments. Beatrice walked in the center, her head held high. This was where she belonged. This was the life she told herself she had been denied for too long. They approached the front desk. "I have a reservation for the Royal Mansion," Darius announced, his voice carrying across the lobby. The receptionist typed on her keyboard, her eyebrows raising slightly as she saw the rate. "That will be $40,000 for the first 2 nights, sir, plus a security deposit." Darius did not blink. He slapped the card down. The same card that was currently draining the last drops of my grandmother's legacy. Back in Atlanta, my phone vibrated against the stainless steel counter of my kitchen. "Transaction approved. Atlantis the Royal. $50,000. I watched the number flash on my screen and took a slow sip of coffee. "Go ahead, Mom. Sleep on 1,000 thread count sheets. It will make the jail cot feel that much harder." Up in the suite, the luxury was suffocating. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Palm Jumeirah and the Arabian Sea. There was a private infinity pool on the balcony. A grand piano sat in the living room. Beatrice ran her hands over the velvet sofas. She looked at the gold fixtures in the bathroom. She felt like a queen. But a queen needs an audience. She pulled out her iPad and logged into Facebook Messenger. She dialed the video group chat for the deaconess board of her church. The screen connected and 4 faces of elderly women in Sunday hats popped up. "Sister Beatrice, is that you? Where are you?" Sister Patterson squawked, peering into her camera. Beatrice positioned herself on the balcony with the Dubai skyline glittering behind her. Praise the Lord, saints. I am in Dubai. Look at what God has done. The women gasped. Dubai, how did you afford that, Beatrice? We thought you were having trouble with the roof. Beatrice laughed, a sound that was pure performance. Oh, God provides. And he used my daughter to do it. Nia finally stepped up. She sold that old house in the West End. She came to me crying and said, Mama, you have sacrificed so much for us. You deserve to see the world. She gave me the money, every cent. She said, go to Dubai, Mom. Live your best life. I watched the recording later sent to me by a cousin who knew the truth. My mother looked right into the camera and rewrote history without a stutter. She turned her theft into my charity. She turned her greed into my gratitude. She painted herself as the beloved matriarch, rewarding herself after years of suffering when in reality she was a fugitive spending stolen funds. Darius walked into the frame popping a bottle of champagne. To Nia, he toasted, mocking me. The best sister money can buy. Beatrice nodded, wiping a fake tear. Yes. She finally did the right thing. She knows her place now. She knows that family comes first. They toasted to their lies. They toasted to the daughter they had robbed. They drank expensive bubbles and looked out at a city built on sand, not realizing their own foundation was washing away beneath their feet. They thought they were untouchable in their tower of glass. They did not know that the ground floor was already burning. The Dubai Mall is not just a shopping center. It is a temple to excess, and my family went there to worship. They walked past the massive aquarium, ignoring the sharks, because they did not realize they were the ones bleeding in the water. Ashley led the charge, her heels clicking on the polished marble like a metronome of greed. She marched straight into Hermes, the way a general marches into a conquered city. She did not want a scarf or a perfume. She wanted the Holy Grail, a Birkin. The sales associate looked them up and down, assessing their worth. Usually you have to be on a list to get a bag like that. But Darius flashed the black card and spoke loudly about crypto dividends and international holdings. He was loud enough to be embarrassing, but rich enough to be tolerated. They brought out a bag, orange leather, gold hardware. It cost $25,000. That was the price of the roof replacement I had planned for the Victorian. Ashley squealed. She did not ask if they could afford it. She just held out her hand for the card. Swipe, approved. Next was Darius. He bypassed Rolex because he said it was too basic. He went to Hublot. He wanted something big, something heavy, something that looked like a transformer on his wrist. He picked out a Big Bang Unico. Rose gold, ceramic bezel, $32,000. He put it on his wrist and flexed for the mirror. This is legacy, Mom, he told Beatrice. This is what a winner looks like. He did not look at the price tag, he just handed over the card. The terminal beeped, approved. Even my mother got swept up in the frenzy. She stopped at a high-end jewelry boutique and bought a diamond tennis bracelet. $6,000. Just a little treat, she said to herself, just something to remember the trip. She deserved it after all the stress of selling the house. She deserved to sparkle. They spent $63,000 in under 2 hours. Back in Atlanta, my phone was vibrating so constantly it felt like a second heartbeat. Transaction approved Hermes. Transaction approved Hublot. Transaction approved Cartier. I sat at my kitchen island drinking tap water and watching them burn my grandmother's life savings. They thought the money was a bottomless pit. They thought they had struck oil. They did not understand that $400,000 goes very fast when you spend like a billionaire on a thief's budget. They were not just buying luxury goods, they were buying evidence. Every receipt was a confession. Every shopping bag was a shackle. I let the notifications roll in. I did not call the bank to stop it. I did not warn them. Keep spending, Darius. Keep spending, Ashley. You are just making the restitution order higher. And the higher the number, the longer the prison sentence. They walked out of the mall laden with bags high on endorphins and arrogance, oblivious to the fact that they had just spent their freedom. Back in Atlanta, the air was thick with humidity and justice. Sterling Vance called me at noon. His voice was light, almost cheerful. Henderson caved. He signed the quitclaim deed an hour ago. He wants to hand over the keys personally. He is terrified, Nia. He thinks the FBI is going to kick down his door any minute. I met Henderson in the parking lot of his office. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. He handed me a heavy brass keyring, his hands shaking. I did not know, Ms. Williams. I swear. Your mother, she was so convincing. She said you were on board. I took the keys. Ignorance is not a defense, Henderson. You operate a predatory business. You feast on people who don't read the fine print. This time you choked on a bone. Do not let me see you in the West End again. He scrambled into his car and sped off, leaving me standing there with the weight of my heritage back in my palm. I drove to the house. The sold sign was still in the yard. I walked up to it, grabbed it with both hands, and ripped it out of the earth. I threw it into the street. I unlocked the front door. The house smelled stale. It smelled like violation. The movers had done their job well before I stopped them. The living room was empty. The dining room was bare. My grandmother's antique buffet was gone. The rug was gone. It echoed with the emptiness of a tomb. I walked through the rooms, my footsteps loud on the hardwood floors. I was looking for damage, but I was also looking for ghosts. I needed to feel Hattie here. I needed to know she was not angry that I let this happen. I went up the stairs to the master bedroom. This was the only room the movers had not fully cleared. The heavy 4-poster bed was still there, too big to move without disassembling. I sat on the edge of the mattress. This was where Hattie died. She passed peacefully in her sleep, holding my hand. I remembered something, a secret. Hattie didn't trust banks, and she didn't trust safes. She trusted the house itself. She used to say, "This house has secrets, Nia, just like us." I got down on my knees and crawled into the walk-in closet. I pulled back the corner of the carpet in the far back. There it was, a loose floorboard. I pried it up with my fingernails. Resting in the space between the joists was a black leather-bound journal. It was dusty but intact. I pulled it out and blew off the gray film. I opened it. The handwriting was shaky spiderweb script from her final months. I turned to an entry dated 3 weeks before she died. Beatrice came by today. She did not ask how I was feeling. She asked about the deed. She asked if I had updated the insurance. I see the hunger in her eyes. It is a hunger that can never be filled. She looks at these walls and sees dollar signs. She looks at her son Darius and sees a prince who needs a castle. They will sell this place before my body is cold if I let them. I turn the page, my vision blurring. I am leaving it all to Nia. Not because she is perfect, but because she is strong. She has iron in her spine. Beatrice has only greed. Darius has only vanity. Nia is the only one who understands that land is not money. Land is blood. They will hate her for it. They will try to take it from her. But I am giving her the sword and the shield. Fight them, Nia. Do not let them eat your inheritance. I closed the book. A tear slid down my cheek, but I wiped it away furiously. She knew. She saw this coming years ago. She knew her own daughter was a vulture waiting to pick the bones. I stood up, clutching the journal to my chest. It was not just a diary. It was a mandate. It was a command from the grave. Hattie had not just left me a house. She had drafted me into a war. I walked out of the closet. I felt lighter. The guilt was gone. The hesitation was gone. My mother was not a victim of circumstance. She was a predator who had been waiting for her chance. I took out my phone. I texted Sterling. I have the keys. I have the house. And I have her permission. Sterling replied instantly. Then let us finish it. The freezing order is active. The 72-hour clock starts now. I walked out onto the balcony overlooking the street. I breathed in the hot Atlanta air. My family was sleeping in luxury 5,000 miles away. They were about to wake up in a nightmare, and I was going to be the one to tuck them in. It was 3 a.m. in Atlanta, but noon in Dubai when the notification lit up my phone. Darius was live on Instagram. I sat on the floor of my grandmother's empty bedroom and tapped the screen. The video feed was shaky and loud. Darius was clearly intoxicated. His eyes were red and he was sweating through his designer shirt. He was holding a bottle of Ace of Spades champagne in one hand and the phone in the other. Behind him, the Dubai skyline glittered like a fever dream. "Yo, what is good, everybody?" he shouted into the microphone. "We are out here living our best lives. Dubai, baby. We made it." He took a swig from the bottle, spilling some down his chin. Then his face darkened. He brought the camera closer until his nose filled the frame. "I just want to say something to the haters back home. Specifically my sister Nia." Yeah, I said it. Nia Williams. The bitter broke old maid of the family. He laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "She is so mad right now, y'all. She is sitting in her little apartment probably crying over a stove because she is jealous. She is jealous that her baby brother finally made it. She is jealous that I am out here spending thousands while she is counting pennies." He turned the camera to Ashley, who was dancing on a table in the background. "Look at my wife. That is a queen. Nia does not have a man. She does not have a legacy. She just has a bad attitude and an apron. She tried to stop us. She tried to say we stole the money. Can you believe that, Eve? She tried to call the cops on her own blood because she is a failure. A failure who cannot stand to see anyone else win." The comments on the live stream were rolling in fast. Most were strangers cheering him on, but then I saw the names I recognized. People from Atlanta. People from the industry. Darius continued his rant. "So stay mad, Nia. Keep cooking your little meals. We are eating gold over here. You are the past. I am the future. This is what success looks like." He ended the stream. I saved the video immediately. It was not just an insult. It was a confession of malice. He had just broadcast his motive to the world. He admitted he took the money to spite me. My phone started buzzing again, but this time it was not notifications from the bank, it was text messages, from people Darius could never dream of meeting. David Ross, the CEO of Centurion Studios, sent a screenshot of the video. "Is this the brother? What a clown. I hope you are suing him into the ground." "Marcus," my head chef texted. "Chief just saw the live. Do you want me to fly to Dubai and handle this? I know people." Even the mayor of Atlanta, who I had catered a fundraiser for last month, sent a brief message. "So sorry you have to deal with this, Nia. Stay strong." They thought they were humiliating me. They thought they were exposing me as a loser. Instead, they had just exposed themselves as petty thieves to the most powerful people in my city. Darius wanted attention. Well, he got it. He just did not realize that the people watching were not his fans. They were my witnesses. I texted Sterling the video file, add defamation to the list, and send the injunction to Instagram, get his account locked. I want him silenced. Sterling replied instantly. Already done. And Nia, the FBI agent in charge of the wire fraud case, just requested a copy of that video. Darius just talked himself into a federal indictment. I stood up and dusted off my pants. The sun was rising over Atlanta. The light hit the bare floorboards where the rocking chair used to sit. They called me a failure. They called me broke. In 72 hours, they were going to learn the difference between being broke and being broken, and I was going to be the one holding the hammer. The sun was fully up now, casting long shadows across the empty living room floor. My phone rang, cutting through the silence like a siren. It was Sterling. I took a deep breath and answered. "Good morning, Nia." His voice was different today. There was no humor in it, no shark-like playfulness. It was the voice of an executioner checking the guillotine blade. "I just walked out of Judge Holloway's chambers. We have it." I walked to the window looking out at the street where the sold sign used to be. "You got the injunction." "I got everything," Sterling replied. "The emergency temporary restraining order is signed. It freezes all assets, the house, the cars, the personal accounts, and most importantly, the trust fund. But that is not the big news." I waited, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm against my ribs. The forensic accounting team finished their preliminary report an hour ago, Sterling continued. When your mother moved that money from the trust to her personal account and then wired it to an international terminal, she triggered a federal tripwire. I spoke with Special Agent Miller at the FBI field office 10 minutes ago. They are not looking at this as a civil dispute anymore, Naya. They are looking at it as Title 18 U.S.C. Section 1343. Wire fraud. Wire fraud. The words hung in the air heavy and cold. Agent Miller is drafting a provisional arrest warrant, Sterling said. But he is willing to hold off on executing it for exactly 72 hours. He wants to see if they return the funds voluntarily. If they do, it might mitigate the sentencing. If they do not, he sends the extradition request to the UAE authorities. So this is it, I said softly. The point of no return. This is it, Sterling confirmed. Once I hit send on this email, the clock starts. Their cards will stop working within minutes. The hotel will lock them out of their room. The rental agency will report the car stolen. They will be stranded in a foreign country with no money, no access, and a federal target on their backs. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about the broken rocking chair. I thought about the forged signature. I thought about Darius screaming into his phone, calling me a failure, while he drank champagne paid for with my grandmother's blood. I thought about my mother lying to her church friends. They made their choice, Sterling. They chose to steal. They chose to run. They chose to humiliate me. Now they have to choose whether they want to be broke or whether they want to be inmates. Send it, I said. I heard the click of a mouse key on the other end. It is done, Sterling said. The email has been sent to their phones. The bank has been notified. The trap is sprung. Now we wait. I hung up the phone. I did not feel happy. I did not feel sad. I felt the cold, hard satisfaction of a balance sheet finally zeroing out. The party was over. It was time to pay the bill. I was not physically present at the Oceano underwater restaurant in Dubai, but I can picture the scene with crystal clarity. It is the kind of place my mother always dreamed of. Tables set against massive floor-to-ceiling aquariums where stingrays and sharks glide past the diners. It is an atmosphere designed to make you feel like you are the center of the universe. They were seated at the best table. Darius was likely ordering the beluga caviar, not because he liked the taste, but because it was the most expensive item on the menu. Ashley was probably taking selfies with a passing hammerhead shark. Beatrice was undoubtedly sipping wine that cost more than her monthly Social Security check. They were laughing. They were toasting to their cleverness. They were celebrating the heist of the century. Then it happened. At exactly 8 p.m. Dubai time, the servers sent the email. 3 phones sat on the white tablecloth. Darius's gold iPhone, Ashley's rose gold one, and my mother's tablet. They all lit up at the exact same second. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The laughter died instantly. The synchronization was too eerie to ignore. Darius picked up his phone first. He frowned, expecting a like on his Instagram or a text from a jealous friend. Instead, he saw a red banner notification. Subject: urgent legal notice regarding federal wire fraud investigation. What is this? Darius muttered, his brow furrowing. Who is Sterling Vance? Beatrice froze. The wine glass hovered halfway to her lips. She set it down slowly. Read it, Darius. Darius tapped the screen. His voice, which had been booming with arrogance seconds ago, shrank into a confused whisper. Dear Ms. Beatrice Williams, Mr. Darius Williams and Mrs. Ashley Williams, this firm represents Ms. Nia Williams regarding the unauthorized sale of the property at 452 Oak Street and the subsequent theft of trust assets. Ashley snatched her phone up, reading along. Oh my God. Oh my God, listen to this part. We have successfully obtained a federal emergency injunction freezing all domestic and international assets associated with your names. The funds you are currently expending are flagged as proceeds of a federal crime under Title 18 United States Code Section 1443. Darius stopped reading. He looked at his mother. Mom, what does that mean? Beatrice grabbed her tablet, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. She scrolled to the bottom of the email where the text was bold and read. You have 72 hours to return the full sum of $400,000 to the trust account. Failure to comply will result in the immediate execution of federal arrest warrants and extradition proceedings from the United Arab Emirates. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. Silence descended on the table, heavier than the thousands of gallons of water pressing against the glass. The caviar sat untouched. The champagne went flat. It is a bluff, Darius said finally, but his voice cracked. It has to be a bluff. Nia does not have this kind of power. She is a cook. She cannot freeze assets in Dubai. She is just trying to scare us. Beatrice stared at the screen. She looked at the word prison. She looked at the word extradition. She knew Nia. She knew that her daughter never made empty threats. Check the account, Beatrice whispered. Check the balance, Darius. Darius laughed nervously. I am telling you, it is fake. Watch. I will pay the bill right now. He raised his hand to signal the waiter. He was about to find out that the simulation was over. The sharks swimming behind the glass were no longer the only predators in the room. They had just been thrown into the deep end and none of them knew how to swim. The silence at the table did not last long. It was broken by a sound that made my skin crawl even from thousands of miles away. My mother chuckled. It started low, a rumble in her throat, and then it grew into a full, dismissive laugh. She tossed the tablet onto the table as if it were a piece of junk mail. She is bluffing, Beatrice declared, her voice regaining that imperious edge. She is trying to ruin our dinner. That is all this is. A temper tantrum. She looked at Ashley, who was still staring at the phone with wide, terrified eyes. Stop reading it, Ashley. It is nonsense. Nia would never sue me. I am her mother. I gave birth to her. I wiped her nose. I raised her. She does not have the stomach to send her own flesh and blood to prison. She is just hurt because we did not invite her. But Mom... Ashley stammered, her voice thin. It says federal wire fraud. It mentions the FBI. That looks like a real legal document. Darius slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. It is a scare tactic, Ashley. God, you are so gullible. He leaned back in his chair, loosening his tie. Nia is sitting in her sad little apartment, watching our stories and eating her heart out. She hired some cheap lawyer to write a scary letter, hoping we would panic and fly home. She wants to control us. She wants to be the boss. He turned to Beatrice, his eyes gleaming with a reckless, manic light. Do not let her win, Mom. If you reply, she wins. If you worry, she wins. You know what you need to do. Block her. Block her, Beatrice asked, reaching for her phone. Block the number, Darius commanded. Block the email. Block the lawyer. Cut off the negativity. We are in Dubai. We are royalty here. We do not accept calls from peasants. Beatrice smiled. A cruel, satisfied smile. You are right, son. I am done explaining myself to her. She tapped the screen once. Twice. There. Blocked. She cannot reach me now. Darius clapped his hands together, rubbing them in anticipation. Good. Now that the trash is taken out, let us get back to the celebration. He scanned the wine list, ignoring the prices completely. He looked for the most prestigious label he could find. Waiter, he called out, snapping his fingers. A server appeared instantly at his elbow. Yes, sir. We are celebrating a victory over the haters tonight. Darius announced loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. Take away this house wine. We want the Chateau Petrus, the 2015 vintage. The waiter raised an eyebrow. Sir, that bottle is $5,000. Darius laughed, throwing his head back. Did I ask the price? I asked for the bottle. Bring it out. And keep the caviar coming. We have a lot of money to spend and only a few days to spend it. Ashley hesitated, looking at the blocked phone, then at the menu. Darius, are you sure? $5,000. Darius reached over and squeezed her hand hard. Baby, trust me. The money is ours, the house is sold, the cash is in the account. Nia can send all the emails she wants. She cannot touch us here. We are untouchable. Beatrice nodded in agreement, her eyes shining with greed. Let him order it, Ashley. We deserve the best. We are finally living the life we were meant to live. The waiter bowed and walked away to fetch the $5,000 bottle of wine. They sat back in their chairs, smug and satisfied. They had blocked the warning. They had silenced the messenger. They truly believed that if they ignored the fire, it would simply stop burning. They had no idea that by ordering that bottle, they were about to trigger the very trap they thought they had escaped. The meal ended with the wreckage of their excess scattered across the table. Empty oyster shells, half-eaten lobster tails, and the empty bottle of Chateau Petrus stood like monuments to their greed. The bill arrived on a small silver tray tucked discreetly inside a leather folder. Darius did not even open it. He did not care that the total was over $8,000. He simply slid the black debit card onto the tray and waved the waiter away with a dismissive flick of his wrist. Keep the change, he said, his words slightly slurred from the wine. We appreciate the service. Beatrice dabbed her mouth with a linen napkin, beaming. You are such a gentleman, Darius. Just like your father. They sat there for a moment, basking in the afterglow of the feast, waiting for the receipt so they could leave. But the waiter did not return with a receipt. He returned with the manager. The manager was a tall man in an impeccable suit. He held the leather folder in both hands, and he did not look happy. He leaned down close to Darius, keeping his voice low to avoid making a scene. Sir, I am afraid the card has been declined. Darius laughed, a short, sharp bark of amusement. Declined. That is impossible. Run it again. It is an international limit thing. You have to bypass the security check. We tried that, sir, the manager said, his voice cooling. The terminal says, do not honor. That usually means the issuer has frozen the account. Do you have another form of payment? Darius rolled his eyes, letting out an exaggerated sigh. Unbelievable. These banks are so incompetent. You spend a little money and they panic. He reached into his wallet and pulled out his personal credit card. The one he used for his failed crypto schemes. Here, use this one. And hurry up, we have a party to get to. The manager took the card and walked to the portable terminal at the side station. Darius turned to Ashley and winked. Glitches happen, babe. Do not worry. I watched the scene unfold in my mind, knowing exactly what the terminal was saying. Sterling had done his job. The blanket freezing order had hit every financial institution connected to their social security numbers. The manager returned. His face was stone. Declined, sir. Darius stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. What do you mean, declined? That is a platinum card. There is 20 grand on that limit. The card is invalid, sir, the manager said, his volume rising slightly, matching Darius's aggression. Both cards are dead. We need a valid form of payment immediately. The bill is $8,400. Beatrice stopped smiling. She looked at Darius, then at the manager. Darius, what is going on? Pay the man. I am trying. Mom. Darius snapped, sweat starting to break out on his forehead. Their machine is broken. He dug into his wallet, frantically pulling out cards. A gas station card. A department store card. A backup debit card. Try this one. Try all of them. One by one the machine beeped. One by one the red light flashed. Declined, declined, declined. The air in the restaurant seemed to vanish. The other diners were starting to look. The sharks in the tank swam silently behind them, witnessing the moment the facade cracked. The illusion of wealth had evaporated, leaving them with an $8,000 check and pockets full of plastic that was now worth less than the food they had just eaten. The panic in Darius's eyes shifted from annoyance to genuine fear. The email, the warning, It was not a bluff. Beatrice shoved Darius aside, her frustration boiling over into action. "You are useless," she hissed at him, digging into her Chanel bag. "You clearly triggered a security hold with your reckless spending. Step aside and let me handle this." She pulled out the heavy metal platinum card, the one directly linked to the offshore account where she had stashed the bulk of the house money. She held it out to the manager with a trembling hand, trying to maintain the air of a grande dame. "Run this," she commanded, her voice high and tight. "It has a $50,000 daily limit. It will clear." The manager took the card, his expression bored. He did not walk away this time. He inserted it into the handheld terminal right at the table. Beatrice held her breath. Darius wiped sweat from his upper lip. Ashley stopped crying long enough to watch the screen. Processing, processing. Then a long, harsh beep echoed through the silent dining room. The screen flashed red. Code 04, pickup card. The manager pulled the card out, but he did not hand it back to Beatrice. He slipped it into his pocket. "Give me back my card!" Beatrice shrieked, reaching for him. "I cannot do that, madam," the manager said, his voice ice cold. "The issuer has flagged this card as stolen property. I am required to confiscate it." "Stolen?" Beatrice gasped, clutching her chest. "It is my money. My daughter gave it to me." "We do not care about your family drama," the manager said. "We care about the $8,400 you owe this establishment. And right now you are attempting to leave without paying. In Dubai, that is a criminal offense." He snapped his fingers. Two large men in black suits emerged from the shadows near the kitchen. They were not smiling. They stepped up to the table, blocking the exit. The walls of the aquarium seemed to close and the sharks circling faster. "Call the police," the manager told one of the guards. "These people are thieves." "No," Darius screamed, jumping up. "No police. Do not call the cops. We can pay. We have cash." He ripped his wallet open, dumping the contents onto the white tablecloth. A few $100 bills fluttered down, mixed with gum wrappers and useless receipts. Beatrice emptied her purse. Ashley threw down a handful of dirhams. They counted it frantically, hands shaking, breath coming in short gasps. $600. They were short nearly 8,000. The manager looked at the pile of cash with disgust. "This is an insult. Call the officers." "Wait." Darius pleaded, tears streaming down his face. "Wait. Look." He held up his wrist. The rose gold hublot shone under the dim lights. The watch he had bought just hours ago for $32,000. "Take the watch. It is brand new. I have the receipt in the bag. It is worth 4 times the bill." The manager looked at the watch, then at Darius's pathetic, desperate face. He sighed. He signaled the guard to wait. "Take it off," the manager ordered. Darius fumbled with the clasp, his fingers slippery with sweat. He slid the heavy watch off his wrist. It felt like he was cutting off a limb. He handed it over. The manager inspected it, checking the serial number against the receipt Darius produced from a shopping bag. "Fine," the manager sneered. "This covers the debt. But you are banned from this hotel. You have 5 minutes to vacate the premises before I change my mind and call the authorities anyway." They scrambled out of their chairs, leaving the half-eaten food and their dignity behind. They walked past the other diners, heads bowed, eyes fixed on the floor. They had walked in as royalty. They were walking out as paupers. And the 72-hour clock was still ticking. The yellow Lamborghini was gone. The valet had refused to retrieve it, claiming the rental agency had issued a repossession order 5 minutes after the credit card declined. So the family that had arrived in Dubai like royalty was forced to pile into a cramped beige taxi that smelled of stale tobacco and sweat. The silence in the car was heavy, thick with accusation. Beatrice refused to look at Darius. Ashley sobbed quietly in the corner, clutching her Hermes bag like a life preserver. When the taxi pulled up to the glittering entrance of the Atlantis, the meter read 60 dirhams. Darius patted his pockets. They were empty. He had given his last cash to the waiter. He turned to his mother. "Give him some money." "I gave everything I had at the restaurant," Beatrice hissed. "You are the man. Handle it." Darius turned to the driver, a heavy-set man with tired eyes. Look, buddy, I left my wallet in the suite. I will run up and get it. Just wait here. The driver shook his head, locking the doors with a loud click. No wallet, no leave. I know this game. You pay now. I told you I am good for it. Darius shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. Do you know who I am? I am staying in the royal suite. I do not care if you are the sheikh himself, the driver yelled back. You pay or I call police. Ashley screamed, tearing a $10 bill from her phone case, the emergency money she kept for tips. She threw it at the driver. Take it. Just take it and let us out. It was barely enough to cover the fare, but the driver, disgusted, unlocked the doors. Get out, he spat. Do not come back. They stumbled out onto the pavement, the humidity hitting them like a physical blow. They didn't stride into the lobby this time. They ran. They needed the safety of their room. They needed to hide. They reached the elevators. Darius jammed his keycard into the slot. He pressed the button for the penthouse floor. Nothing happened. A small red light blinked on the panel. Access denied. He tried again, smashing the card against the reader. Come on, work. The red light blinked again, mocking him. He is canceling the keys, Beatrice whispered, her face draining of color. Go to the desk. Fix this, Darius. They marched to the reception desk. The smile was gone from the concierge's face. As they approached, two security guards quietly moved to position themselves behind the family. My key is not working. Darius slammed his hand on the marble counter. I want to speak to the manager. This is unacceptable. The receptionist did not flinch. She did not type. She simply folded her hands on the desk. Mr. Williams, we have been trying to reach you. We received a notification from your bank and the local authorities regarding your payment method. It is a mistake, Darius lied, his voice trembling. The bank is sorting it out. Just let us into our room so I can call them. I am afraid I cannot do that, sir. The receptionist said, her voice calm and terrifyingly professional. Your reservation has been terminated, effective immediately. The credit card on file has been reported as an instrument of federal fraud. All assets associated with your booking have been frozen pending an international investigation. Terminated? Beatrice gasped. But our things, my clothes, my medication, your personal effects are being packed by security as we speak, the receptionist replied. They will be waiting for you outside the main gate. You are no longer welcome on the property. You have 10 minutes to vacate the premises before we involve the Dubai police. Darius looked around the lobby. The gold fountains, the chandeliers, the guests looking at them with pity and disgust. The castle had fallen. They were not guests anymore. They were trespassers. And for the first time since they stole the deed, they realized that Nia was not just watching. She was hunting. The heavy glass doors of the Atlantis resort did not just close, they slammed shut with a finality that echoed in my bones. We stood on the concrete curb, the artificial breeze from the lobby cutting off, instantly replaced by the suffocating wet heat of the Dubai night. Darius turned back, pounding his fist against the glass. Hey, open up. You cannot do this. That is my property in there. My laptop, my clothes. Open the door. The head of security, a man built like a tank, stepped forward from behind the glass. He did not open the door. He simply spoke through the intercom, his voice tinny but firm. Your belongings are being held as collateral against the unpaid balance of $48,000. When you wire the funds, we ship the bags. Until then, they belong to the hotel. Move along, sir, or we call the police. Darius kicked the door, leaving a scuff mark on the pristine glass before turning around. He looked wild. His hair was matted with sweat, his expensive suit rumpled. Ashley was standing next to a palm tree, shivering despite the heat. She was wearing a strapless sequined gown and towering stilettos, meant for a gala, not for the pavement. Beatrice was clutching her empty Chanel bag, looking at the hotel like a deposed queen staring at her lost palace. We have to walk, Beatrice said, her voice trembling. We cannot stay here. Walk where Ashley screamed. Her composure cracked completely. We are on a man-made island, Darius. There is nothing here but hotels we cannot afford and sand. We have no water. We have no money, and I am wearing 6-inch heels. She turned on Darius, shoving him hard in the chest. This is your fault. You said you handled it. You said you were a crypto genius. You said we were going to be billionaires. You are nothing but a fraud, Darius. A broke loser who dragged me to the desert to die. Darius shoved her back, his face twisting with rage. Shut up, Ashley. You were happy enough spending the money when the card worked. You did not ask questions when you were buying that ugly bag. You are just a leech. I am a victim, Ashley shrieked, mascara running down her face. I could have married a doctor. I could have stayed in Atlanta. But no, I listened to you. Stop it, both of you, Beatrice commanded, trying to summon her old authority. We need to stick together. We are a family. Oh, save it, Mom. Darius spat, turning his venom on her. This is on you. You are the one who said Nia was weak. You are the one who said she would never sue. You said she will just cry and get over it. Well, guess what? She did not cry. She nuked us. You underestimated her because you are arrogant. And now look at us. He gestured to their reflection in a shop window. 3 people dressed in $10,000 worth of evening wear standing on a street corner with empty pockets. Passers-by in taxis stared at them not with envy but with confusion. They looked like clowns who had wandered off from a circus. We are walking, Darius decided, starting down the long road toward the mainland. Ashley hobbled after him, sobbing loudly. I hate you. I hate this family. Beatrice trailed behind them, the humidity making her expensive blowout frizzy. She looked down at her phone. It was dead. No battery, no money, no friends. For the first time in her life, she realized that without Nia's money, she was not a matriarch. She was just an old woman alone in the dark. The city lights of Dubai twinkled ahead, a mirage they could see, but could no longer touch, and the 72-hour clock was ticking down the seconds, loud as a heartbeat in the silence of the desert night. The phone rang at 4 a.m. Atlanta time. It was an unknown international number. I was already awake, sitting on the floor of the empty living room, watching the sunrise paint the walls in shades of gold and gray. I knew who it was. They had finally found a way to make a call. I took a sip of my coffee, placed the mug down on the hardwood floor, and swiped answer. I did not say hello. I did not have to. Nia, what the hell do you think you are doing? My mother's voice was so loud it distorted the speaker. She was not crying. She was not begging. She was screaming with the primal rage of a woman who had never been told no in her entire life. Fix this. Fix this right now. We are on the street, Nia. We are stranded in the middle of nowhere because of you. Unfreeze the cards immediately. Do you hear me? I am your mother. I listened to her panting on the other end. I could hear traffic in the background, the sound of wind whipping against a microphone. I could hear Ashley crying in the distance. Are you finished? I asked, my voice calm and steady. No, I am not finished, Beatrice shrieked. You are an ungrateful, spiteful little girl. I gave you life. I raised you. I put clothes on your back. And this is how you repay me. Over a house. A rotting old house that you did not even pay for. You are destroying your family over money, Nia. You are sending us to hell because you are jealous. Open the goddamn accounts. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the neighborhood she despised, the neighborhood she called a ghetto. I saw Mrs. Johnson walking her dog. I saw the oak trees standing tall. You are right, Mom, I said softly. I am destroying the family. But I am only finishing the job you started. Don't you dare lecture me, Beatrice spat. I am the parent. You are the child. You do as I say. Call the bank. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them to turn the money back on. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You still do not get it, do you? There is no money to turn back on. You spent it. You and Darius ate it and drank it and wore it. The only thing left in those accounts is a negative balance and a federal warrant. You have to stop this, she demanded, her voice cracking for the first time. Please, Nia. It is hot. We have nowhere to go. I leaned my forehead against the cool glass of the window. I remembered the day she sold the house. I remembered how she looked me in the eye and smiled while strangers threw my memories into a dumpster. You stood in my driveway and told me I did not need that old house, I said, my voice hardening into steel. You said it was too much maintenance. You said you were relieving me of a burden. It was a burden, she insisted. I was helping you. Well, now I am helping you, I replied. I have been looking at your life, Mom, and I have decided that you do not need freedom. It is too expensive. You do not know how to manage it. You spend your liberty too recklessly. So I am taking it away. I am relieving you of the burden of choice. Nia, do not do this, she screamed. You have 60 hours left, I said, checking the watch on my wrist. 60 hours to find $400,000. If I were you, I would stop screaming at me and start begging strangers for change. Because the FBI is not as patient as I am. I hung up the phone. The silence that filled the house was not empty. It was peaceful. I sat back down on the floor and watched the sun rise higher. The countdown continued. The sun in Dubai does not rise, it attacks. We spent the night huddled on a hard wooden bench in a small park near the marina. The humidity was a physical weight pressing down on us like a wet wool blanket. My mother, who always prided herself on her appearance, looked like a ghost. Her silk blouse was stained with sweat, and her hair, once perfectly coiffed, was matted to her skull. Ashley had taken off her shoes hours ago. Her feet were swollen and blistered, the red soles of her Louboutins scuffed against the dirty pavement. We were refugees in couture. Passers-by looked at us with a mixture of confusion and disgust, avoiding eye contact as if our desperation was contagious. Darius sat up, wiping grit from his eyes. He looked at his wrist. The rose gold hublot. The one thing we managed to keep when the hotel confiscated our luggage. It glinted in the harsh morning light, a mockery of our situation. That watch cost $32,000 yesterday. Today it was our only hope for a flight home. We walked to the Gold Souk. It took 2 hours in the blistering heat. When we finally stumbled into a small jewelry shop, the air conditioning felt like salvation. Darius walked up to the counter, slamming his hand down. I want to sell this. He unclasped the heavy watch and slid it across the glass. It is a Big Bang Unico. Brand new. I paid 32 grand for it yesterday. I will let it go for 25, cash. The merchant, a man with sharp eyes and a beard trimmed to perfection, picked up the watch. He turned it over slowly. He inspected the movement with a loupe. He looked at Darius, then at the watch, then back at Darius. Where is the box? Where is the warranty card, the certificate of authenticity? Darius swallowed hard. At the hotel. We are switching hotels. I do not have them on me right now. But you can check the serial number. It is legit. The merchant pushed the watch back across the glass. Without papers, it is just metal. I do not know if it is stolen. I do not know if it is a replica. The market is flooded with fakes. It is real. Darius shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Look at it. Call the boutique in the mall. I bought it yesterday. The merchant shrugged, indifferent to Darius's hysteria. I am not a detective. I am a businessman. No papers means high risk. I have to strip it for parts or resell it as loose inventory. I will give you $4,000. 4,000? Darius screamed. That is robbery. That is a $30,000 loss in 24 hours. You are trying to cheat me. Take it or leave it, the merchant said, turning back to his ledger. Beatrice grabbed Darius's arm. Her grip was weak, her eyes desperate and hollow. Take it, Darius. We need water. We need food. We need a phone that works. We cannot argue. Darius stared at the watch. He looked at the merchant. He looked at us. He realized he had no leverage. He was not a crypto king. He was a desperate tourist trying to pawn a luxury item to survive. Fine, he whispered. Give me the money. He watched as the man counted out the bills. $4,000. A fortune to some, but to us it was barely a fraction of the debt we owed. We walked out of the shop with a handful of cash and empty wrists. We had just sold our dignity for pennies on the dollar, and the clock kept ticking. The ticket counter at Dubai International Airport was a place of humiliation. Just 48 hours ago, they had breezed through the first-class terminal, sipping champagne and looking down on the masses. Now they stood in the longest line at the budget carrier desk, counting crumpled bills with shaking hands. $4,000 sounds like a lot, until you need 3 last-minute international tickets. We cannot afford direct, Darius muttered, staring at the screen. Direct is $2,000 a person. We have to take the scenic route. Beatrice gripped the counter, her knuckles white. Just get us home, Darius. I do not care how. He bought the tickets. Economy. Row 48. The itinerary was a nightmare designed by Dante himself. Dubai to Mumbai, Mumbai to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Atlanta. 3 stops, 40 hours of travel, and an 18-hour layover in Frankfurt. They boarded the first flight. They walked past the business class pods they felt they deserved and squeezed into the cramped seats at the back of the plane. Darius's knees pressed against the seat in front of him. Ashley sat in the middle, her sequined dress itching against her skin, her expensive heels kicked off to reveal swollen, bruised feet. Beatrice stared out the window, refusing to speak, refusing to acknowledge the crying baby in the row behind them. But the real hell began in Frankfurt. They landed in Germany at 4 in the morning. They had no lounge access. They had no money for a hotel. They had to wait 18 hours for the final leg to Atlanta. They found a row of metal seats near a vending machine. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly green pallor over their exhausted faces. It was hour 10 that broke them. Ashley was hungry. She asked Darius for money to buy a sandwich. We do not have sandwich money, Darius snapped. We have water money. Drink some water and shut up. Ashley stood up, her eyes wild with lack of sleep and hunger. Do not tell me to shut up. You did this. You and your stupid crypto arrogance. You said we were untouchable. You said Nia was a joke. Now look at us. I am sleeping on a bench in Germany like a vagrant because of you. Sit down, Ashley, Darius hissed, looking around at the staring travelers. No, I will not sit down, she screamed. I want a divorce. As soon as we land, I am done with you. I am done with your mother. I am done with this whole fake family. Darius stood up and shoved her. Not hard, but enough to make her stumble back into the metal seats. You are not going anywhere. You are an accomplice, Ashley. You signed papers too. You spent the money too. You are going to jail right next to me. Something in Ashley snapped. She let out a guttural scream and lunged at him. Her nails, long and manicured for a life of leisure, raked across Darius's face. She aimed for the eyes. Darius roared in pain and grabbed her hair, pulling her head back. They crashed to the floor, a tangle of limbs and sequins and curses. Beatrice screamed, trying to pull them apart, but she was too weak. Get off him, Beatrice yelled, hitting Ashley with her empty purse. Stop it! Stop it right now! Security guards came running from every direction. They hauled Darius off his wife, his face bleeding from 3 deep scratches down his cheek. Ashley was sobbing on the floor, her dress torn at the shoulder, her makeup smeared into a mask of tragedy. They were not arrested only because the German police did not want the paperwork of deporting 3 broke Americans who were already leaving. They were given a warning and separated. For the remaining 8 hours of the layover, they sat in different corners of the terminal. Darius dabbed at his bleeding face with a rough paper towel. Ashley stared at the wall, shivering. Beatrice sat alone, praying not for forgiveness, but for a miracle that would stop the inevitable. They looked like survivors of a shipwreck, battered, bleeding, broken, and they still had a 10-hour flight to Atlanta where the FBI was waiting at the gate to welcome them home. The wheels of the Delta flight slammed onto the tarmac at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport with a violence that rattled my teeth. It was not a smooth arrival. It felt like a crash landing. We had left Atlanta 72 hours ago as conquering heroes sipping champagne in first class. We returned as refugees huddled in the back of row 48, smelling of stale sweat, economy meals, and fear. We shuffled off the jet bridge. The humidity of Georgia hit us instantly, thick and suffocating. But unlike the dry heat of Dubai, which felt like luxury, this felt like a swamp. I looked at my family. We were a grotesque parade. Darius was trying to hide the 3 angry scabs running down his cheek where Ashley had clawed him. Ashley was walking barefoot, her feet swollen and black with airport grime, carrying her broken Louboutins in one hand. Beatrice looked shrunken. Her silk blouse was stained with coffee and sweat. Her hair was a frizzy, matted disaster. We looked like we had survived a war, but the only war we had fought was against our own greed. We walked toward the baggage claim in silence. We had no checked bags to collect since the hotel had confiscated them all. We just had the clothes on our backs and the empty feeling in our stomachs. But as we rode the escalator down to the atrium, a strange delusion began to take hold of us. "She will be here," Beatrice whispered, her voice raspy from dehydration. "She has to be here." Darius nodded, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "Yeah." She made her point. She proved she is the boss. Now she wants to gloat. She is probably parked at the curb in the Range Rover waiting to watch me beg. They truly believed it. In their twisted, narcissistic minds, they could not conceive of a world where Nia did not care about them. They thought they were the center of her universe. They thought she would be there to save them, even if it was just to yell at them. They needed her to be there. They needed a ride. They needed food. They needed money. They were banking on the blood connection they had spent years abusing. "She is a Williams," Beatrice said, straightening her ruined collar, trying to summon a shred of dignity. "We take care of our own. She cannot leave her mother stranded at the airport. It is not Christian." We reached the bottom of the escalator. The arrivals hall was chaotic, filled with families hugging drivers holding signs and travelers rushing to their destinations. We stopped. We stood together, a huddled mass of misery, and we scanned the crowd. We looked for Nia's tall, proud figure. We looked for the logo of Legacy Catering. We looked for a driver holding a sign that said Williams. We looked for 5 minutes, then 10. There was no one. The indifference of the crowd was a cold slap in the face. Nia had not come to save us. She had not even come to mock us. She had done something far worse. She had ignored us. We were not worth her gas money. We were not worth her time. The realization hit Darius first. His shoulders slumped and he let out a whimper that sounded like a wounded dog. "She is not coming," he said. "She actually left us here." Beatrice looked around frantically, searching for a face that wasn't there. "She cannot do this. I am her mother." "She just did," Ashley muttered, sitting down on the dirty floor of the terminal, heedless of the passers-by. "She wins, we lose." But we were not entirely alone. As the crowd thinned, I saw them. Standing near the automatic sliding doors were 4 men. They were not wearing chauffeur uniforms. They were wearing navy blue windbreakers with yellow lettering on the back. They were standing perfectly still, their hands clasped in front of them, and they were staring directly at us. They were not family, and they were definitely not there to give us a ride home. The 4 men moved with the synchronized precision of predators closing in on wounded prey. They did not smile. They did not wave. They simply stepped forward, forming a semicircle that blocked any path to the exit. The crowd parted instinctively, sensing the gravity of the moment. The tallest man stepped out. On the back of his navy jacket, huge yellow letters spelled out FBI. Beside him stood 2 uniformed Fulton County sheriffs and a familiar figure in a bespoke Italian suit. Sterling Vance, Beatrice Williams, Darius Williams, Ashley Williams. The FBI agent spoke, his voice cutting through the airport noise like a knife. "I am Special Agent Miller. You are under arrest." Beatrice recoiled, clutching her chest in a theatrical display of shock. "Arrest? You cannot arrest me. I am a senior citizen. This is a family dispute. Where is my daughter? Where is Nia?" Nia is not coming, Mrs. Williams. Sterling answered, stepping forward. He held a thick stack of documents in his hand. In fact, she specifically asked me to deliver this to you personally. It is a civil summons. She is suing you for fraud, conversion, and emotional distress. But that is for later. Right now, you belong to Agent Miller. Darius tried to back away, looking for a gap in the line. Wait, hold on, man, this is a misunderstanding. We were just borrowing the money. We were going to pay it back. Agent Miller did not entertain the lie. He nodded to the deputies. Secure them. The sound of metal ratchets clicking shut echoed in the arrival hall. Darius was first. The deputy spun him around, forcing his hands behind his back. The cold steel of the handcuffs bit into his wrists, replacing the rose-gold hublot he had worn just 24 hours ago. Ashley began to wail, collapsing to her knees. I didn't do it. I just went along with it. I want a lawyer. I want to cut a deal. You can discuss that with the U.S. Attorney Agent Miller, said impassively. Get her up. Then they turned to Beatrice, the matriarch, the woman who believed she was untouchable. A deputy approached her, holding the cuffs. Do not touch me, Beatrice hissed, drawing herself up. I am a woman of God. This is a mistake. Nia. Nia, where are you? Tell them to stop. Sterling looked at her, his eyes devoid of pity. Stop calling her name Beatrice. She is not listening. She is at the studio signing the biggest contract of her career. She is building her future. You are about to face yours. The deputy took Beatrice's wrists. She fought for a second, a pathetic struggle of a woman losing her last shred of control before the metal snapped shut. You are charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Agent Miller recited, reading them their rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The scene attracted a crowd. Travelers pulled out their phones, filming the spectacle. The very public that Darius had tried to impress with his live stream was now recording his downfall. The flash of cameras popped, capturing them in their filth and their shame. Sterling leaned in close to Darius as the deputies began to march them away. By the way, Darius, Nia saw your video. She said you were right about one thing. You are going to be famous. Tonight, you are going to be the lead story on the 6 o'clock news. They were led away not to a luxury SUV, but to the back of a squad car. The automatic doors slid open, and the humid Atlanta air swallowed them whole. They had returned home looking for a rescue. Instead, they found justice waiting at the gate, holding a pair of handcuffs and a one-way ticket to federal prison. The deputy did not treat Beatrice like a grandmother. To him, she was just another suspect in a long line of criminals he processed every day. He pulled her arms behind her back with professional indifference. The joints in her shoulders popped and she let out a sharp cry of pain. You are hurting me, she shrieked, twisting against his grip. I have arthritis. You cannot do this. I am a respectable woman. I am a deaconess. You are under arrest for forgery in the first degree and theft, by taking the deputy recited, tightening the cuffs until they clicked. We also have a warrant for identity fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you start using it. Beatrice looked around wildly. The humiliation was burning her alive. Strangers were pointing. Children were staring. Her legacy was dissolving in the middle of the arrivals terminal. Panic set in. Real, visceral panic. She needed a savior. She needed the daughter she had exploited for 30 years. Nia, she screamed, scanning the sea of faces. Nia, where are you? Sterling stepped closer, adjusting his tie. He pointed a manicured finger toward the upper mezzanine level that overlooked the baggage claim. She is right there, Beatrice. She wanted to make sure the transaction was completed. Beatrice looked up. Standing near the glass railing, looking down like a judge from a high bench, was Nia. She was not wearing her chef's coat. She was wearing a tailored white suit that glowed under the airport lights. She looked immaculate. She looked powerful. She looked nothing like the girl Beatrice used to bully into submission. Nia, Beatrice wailed, the sound tearing from her throat. Nia, baby, please. Tell them who I am. Tell them it was a mistake. I am your mother. I carried you. You cannot let them take me to jail. Nia did not move. She did not wave. She stood perfectly still, her face a mask of stone. She looked at her mother not with hatred but with a terrifying indifference. It was the look one gives to a stranger. Beatrice fell to her knees, dragging the deputy down with her. The cold tile hit her knees, but she didn't feel it. She only felt the severing of the cord. "I am sorry, Nia." She sobbed, tears streaming through the grime on her face. "I am sorry about the house. I will give it back. I will sign anything. Just make them stop. Please, child. Do not do this to me." Nia watched her mother beg. She watched the woman who had forged her signature and stolen her future crumble into a heap of misery. She watched Darius being shoved into a squad car. She watched Ashley hyperventilating on a bench. Then Nia did something that broke Beatrice's heart more than the handcuffs. She reached into her purse, pulled out her sunglasses, and put them on. She covered her eyes, shielding herself from the sight of her mother's ruin. She turned her back. "No," Beatrice screamed as the deputy hauled her to her feet. "No, Nia, come back. Look at me." But Nia was already walking away. Her heels clicked rhythmically on the floor, a steady beat of progress. She did not look back. She did not hesitate. She walked toward the exit, toward her car, toward her business, toward a life that finally belonged only to her. "Get her in the car," the deputy ordered. Beatrice was shoved into the back seat of the cruiser. The door slammed shut, cutting off her screams. Through the wire mesh of the window, she saw the white suit disappear into the crowd. Her daughter was gone. The bank account was empty. The house was gone. And as the siren wailed to life, Beatrice Williams realized she was finally exactly where she deserved to be. Alone. Ashley was twisting like a trapped eel in the grip of the female deputy. Her mascara was running in black rivets down her cheeks, and her voice had reached a pitch that made the travelers nearby cover their ears. "I am innocent," she screamed, her eyes darting between the FBI agents and Sterling. "I did not sign the deed. I did not sell the house. I was just on vacation. I am the wife. I just went where my husband took me. You cannot arrest me for going on a trip." She looked at Sterling pleadingly. Tell them I am just a witness." Sterling did not look impressed. He slowly opened the leather folder he was holding and pulled out a stack of high-resolution scans. He held them up so Ashley could see them. They were receipts, copies of the digital signatures captured on the payment terminals in Dubai. "Ignorance is not a defense when you are holding the shopping bags," Ashley Sterling said, his voice cutting through her hysteria like a razor. "Here is your signature at Hermes. $25,000. Here is your signature at the spa. $2,000. And here is a video posted to your own TikTok account thanking your husband for the stolen money." Ashley froze, staring at the damning paper trail. "You knowingly received, possessed, and spent proceeds derived from criminal activity." Sterling continued, citing the statute from memory. "That makes you an accessory after the fact and a co-conspirator in money laundering. You were not a tourist, Ashley. You were the getaway driver spending the loot." The color drained from her face. She stopped fighting. The realization that her greed had left a digital footprint she could never erase caused her knees to buckle. The deputy hauled her up and marched her toward the second squad car. Nia walked past Ashley without even a glance. Her focus was on the back of the first cruiser where Darius was being shoved into the seat. He was struggling, trying to keep his head up, trying to maintain some scrap of his shattered ego. When he saw Nia approaching, he stopped. The deputy paused, allowing the siblings one final moment. Darius looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion and hate. But underneath the hate was fear, pure, naked fear. "You happy now?" he spat, his voice thick with venom. "You got what you wanted. You put your own brother in chains. I hope the house was worth it." Nia stood 2 feet away from him. She smelled of expensive perfume and success. He smelled of airplane air and failure. She looked him up and down, taking in the torn shirt, the bruises from the fight with Ashley, and the shiny steel cuffs binding his wrists. It was never about the house, Darius, Nia said, her voice calm and terrifyingly final. It was about respect. You thought you could take what you did not build. You thought the world owed you a living. She leaned in closer so only he could hear. You always wanted the VIP treatment, she whispered. You wanted a life where you did not have to work, where you got 3 meals a day and a roof over your head for free. She smiled a cold, sharp smile that did not reach her eyes. Well, congratulations, little brother. You finally got it. You just booked yourself a long-term, all-inclusive vacation in federal prison. Darius lunged at her, a futile, animalistic movement, but the deputy slammed him against the doorframe. Watch your head, the deputy said, shoving him inside. The door slammed shut. Nia watched through the glass as Darius screamed silently behind the barrier. She watched as the lights on the roof of the car flashed red and blue, illuminating the airport arrival lane. Sterling walked up beside her, closing his folder. That is a wrap. The house is yours again. The assets are seized, and the family reunion is officially canceled. Nia turned away from the police cars. She looked at the horizon where the Atlanta skyline was waiting. Let us go, Sterling, she said, adjusting her jacket. I have a menu to plan. And I am starving. The wheels of justice usually turn slowly, but when the evidence is a 4K video confession and a paper trail of luxury receipts, the wheels spin fast. The trial was not a battle. It was a massacre. Sterling Vance walked into the courtroom with a briefcase full of undeniable facts. The defense attorney, a court-appointed public defender, looked tired before the opening statements even began. He knew there was no explaining away a live stream where the defendant mocked the victim while holding stolen champagne. We sat in the Federal District Court of Atlanta. The air was cold and smelled of floor wax and regret. I sat in the front row perfectly still. I needed to see this through to the very end. Beatrice stood up first. She tried to play the role of the confused elderly woman. She wore a modest cardigan and held a tissue to her nose, trembling for the jury. But Judge Holloway was not moved. He looked over his glasses at the woman who had sold her own mother's legacy. Beatrice Williams, the judge, said, his voice booming off the mahogany walls. You have shown no remorse. You abused your power as a trustee. You manipulated the legal system to defraud your own family. This court finds your actions predatory and calculated. Beatrice gripped the table, her knuckles white. I am sentencing you to 60 months in a federal correctional facility, followed by 3 years of supervised release. 5 years. My mother let out a gasp that sounded like air escaping a tire. Her legs gave out and her lawyer had to catch her. She looked back at me, her eyes wide with shock, expecting me to jump up and object. I simply crossed my legs and watched. Next were Darius and Ashley. They stood shoulder to shoulder, but the distance between them was miles wide. They refused to look at each other. The judge turned his gaze to them. You two treated a felony like a lottery win. You spent stolen funds with reckless abandon. However, since you have no prior felonies, I am suspending your prison sentences in favor of a more practical punishment. Darius exhaled, shoulders sagging in relief. He thought he had won. He was wrong. You are sentenced to 5 years of strict probation, the judge continued. You will complete 2,000 hours of community service. And you are ordered to pay full restitution of the $400,000 plus legal fees and interest. Your wages will be garnished until the debt is paid in full. You will not own a luxury car or take a vacation until this court is satisfied. You are effectively working for Nia Williams now. Darius looked sick. He realized he wasn't free. He was an indentured servant to his own debt. The gavel banged. Case closed. As the bailiffs moved to take Beatrice into custody, Ashley made her move. She reached into her bag, not for a tissue, but for a manila envelope. She slapped it onto the defense table in front of Darius. The sound echoed in the quiet room. What is this? Darius asked, staring at the papers. It is a divorce filing, Ashley said, her voice loud and clear. I cited irreconcilable differences and fraud. I am not spending the next 10 years paying off your debt, Darius. I am going back to my parents' house. You are on your own. She turned on her heel and walked out of the courtroom, leaving him standing there with a garnishment order in one hand and divorce papers in the other. Beatrice was led away in handcuffs, weeping softly. Darius stood alone, bankrupted and abandoned. I stood up and smoothed down my skirt. Sterling closed his briefcase and smiled at me. Justice is served, Nia. I looked at the empty defense table. It did not feel like a victory. It felt like a necessary amputation. I had cut off the dead weight so I could finally survive. Let us go, Sterling, I said, walking toward the heavy oak doors. I have a house to renovate, and this time I am changing the locks. The renovation took 3 months of sweat and sawdust. I did not just fix the house, I healed it. I stripped away the years of neglect and the taint of my mother's betrayal. The floorboards where I found Hattie's secret journal were sanded down and stained a deep, rich mahogany. The walls were painted in warm, inviting creams and sage greens. The dining room where the theft was planned was transformed into an elegant client tasting room. But the heart of the house was the kitchen. I knocked out the back wall and expanded the footprint, installing 6 industrial wolf ranges and a walk-in fridge that could hold enough food for a royal wedding. I did not turn the house into a cold office. I kept its soul. Above the front door, I hung a new sign hand-carved from oak, Hattie's Heritage Catering. Heritage. It was no longer just a property, it was a headquarters. Tonight was the grand opening. The sun set over the West End, but my street was brighter than it had ever been. The neighbors came out onto their porches not to complain, but to watch the spectacle. A line of black SUVs and stretch limousines stretched down the block. This was a neighborhood that usually saw sedans and pickup trucks. Tonight it was hosting Bentleys and Maybachs. I stood at the entrance wearing a dress the color of champagne. I welcomed the people who made Hollywood run. David Ross, the CEO of Centurion Studios, was the first to arrive. He stepped out of his car and looked up at the house. Nia, this is spectacular, he said, shaking my hand. You have turned a residence into a landmark. Thank you, David, I replied. It has good bones. It just needed someone who respected them. Behind him came the stars. The lead actress from the blockbuster I had catered last month walked in, hugging me like an old friend. The mayor of Atlanta arrived with a security detail, shaking hands and talking about urban revitalization. They filled the house with laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses. Waiters circulated through the crowd, carrying trays of my signature appetizers. Miniature lobster rolls with saffron aioli, truffle deviled eggs, smoked brisket sliders on homemade brioche. The food that Darius had mocked as peasant work was being devoured by people whose net worth started in the 9 figures. I walked through the rooms listening to the hum of success. In the corner where my grandmother's rocking chair used to sit, a famous director was discussing a multi-million-dollar contract with a producer. In the hallway where the police had once come for noise complaints, the city council was discussing zoning permits. I stepped out onto the wraparound porch to catch my breath. The air was cool and sweet. I looked down at the yard. The grass was manicured, the flowers were blooming. There was no for sale sign. There was no desperation. Sterling Vance walked up beside me, holding 2 glasses of sparkling water. He handed me one. You did it, Nia, he said quietly. You didn't just win the lawsuit. You won the war. I took a sip. I looked at the bustling party inside. My mother wanted to sell this place for pennies, so she could pretend to be rich for a week. She saw rotting wood and a burden. I saw a foundation. She is sitting in a cell right now, Sterling said, probably wondering how it all went wrong. I hope she figures it out, I said. But I do not have time to worry about her. I have a business to run. I turned back to the door. The sound of my name being called pulled me back inside. Someone needed a toast. Someone needed to sign a check. My legacy was waiting, and I was not going to miss a single second of it. The last of the taillights faded around the corner, leaving 452 Oak Street in a comfortable silence. The gala was over. The caterers had packed up the trucks, the staff had swept the floors. The house, which had buzzed with the energy of Atlanta's elite for hours, now settled back into its foundation. It was a heavy, satisfied silence, the kind of quiet that only comes after a massive victory. I did not go to bed, not yet. There was one ritual left to complete. I walked out onto the porch, carrying a steaming mug of chamomile tea. I did not want champagne. I had seen enough champagne to last a lifetime. I wanted clarity. I walked over to the corner where the shadows were deepest. There it sat, the rocking chair. It had been a struggle to find it. Darius had sold it to a junk shop for $20. I had tracked it down, bought it back, and spent 3 weekends restoring it. I sanded away the scratches. I stained the wood until it glowed like dark honey. I wove a new seat cushion. It was not just a chair, it was a throne. I sat down. The wood groaned slightly, a familiar welcoming sound that echoed from my childhood. Creak, creak, creak. I found the rhythm immediately. It was the heartbeat of this house. My phone vibrated on the small side table. For months, that sound had triggered a spike of adrenaline. It usually meant money was leaving my account. It meant betrayal. It meant theft. I picked it up. The screen illuminated my face in the darkness. First National Bank. Deposit alert. Wire transfer received from Centurion Studios. Amount $500,000. Current balance $2,800,000. I stared at the numbers. They were real. They were legal. And they were mine. My mother was currently sitting in a 6x8 cell staring at a concrete wall. Darius was likely sleeping on a friend's couch, dreading his morning shift, picking up trash on the highway. They had chased a mirage and found a cliff. I had stayed planted and found a gold mine. I set the phone down face down. I did not need to see it. I knew my worth. I took a sip of tea, the warmth spreading through my chest. I closed my eyes and breathed in the night air. It smelled of jasmine and damp earth. But underneath that, I caught a faint scent. Lavender and yeast. And old paper. It was the smell of Hattie. The air on the porch seemed to shift, becoming warmer around my shoulders like a shawl being draped over me. I was not alone. I had never been alone. She had been here in the floorboards. She had been here in the walls. And she was here now, sitting with me in the quiet victory of the night. I kept my promise, Grandma. I whispered into the dark. I did not let them take it. It is safe now. It is all safe. The wind rustled the oak trees in the yard, a soft applause from the universe. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached all the way to my soul. The war was over. The house was mine. The legacy was secure. I rocked back and forth, listening to the song of the house. I was Nia Williams. I was a chef. I was a businesswoman. And finally, completely, I was free. The story of Nia Williams illustrates a powerful truth. True wealth cannot be stolen. It must be built. While her family chased the illusion of riches through fraud and temporary luxury, Nia secured her future through integrity, competence, and strategic legal action. Greed offers a temporary high, but it always arrives with a devastating bill, in this case, incarceration and bankruptcy. Nia's victory proves that protecting your legacy requires not just sentiment, but financial literacy and the courage to set boundaries with toxic family members. In the end, character is the only currency that never depreciates. Would you like me to develop a detailed character profile for the casting director, or start a new storyline based on a different genre?